Hello friends. Did you know nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy these stories, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Thank you for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I've been doing this for 23 years. 23 years driving Interstate 20 back and forth across Texas until I know every exit sign, every rest stop, every mile marker by heart. But that night, October 14th, 2017, everything was different. My name is Wyatt Briggs. I picked up a load in Pecos, industrial generators, heavy bastards that made the trailer groan with every pothole. The manifest said delivery by 6 a.m. in Abilene, which meant pushing through the night. I didn't mind. Night driving was when I did my best thinking, when the road belonged to truckers and no one else. The sun was already bleeding out across the western horizon when I pulled out of the depot. That particular shade of orange, like rust mixed with fire, always made me uneasy. My old man used to say that when the sky turned that color, the desert was angry. I never put much stock in his superstitions, but that evening, watching that burning orange sky swallow the last of the daylight, I felt something tighten in my chest. The first hour was routine. I-20 stretched out ahead like a black ribbon, the white lines ticking past in rhythm with the engine's growl. The radio played classic country, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, the good stuff. I had a thermos of coffee wedged between my legs, still hot enough to burn my tongue when I took a sip. Around 8 o'clock, I noticed the wind picking up. It started subtle, just a slight buffeting against the trailer, but within 20 minutes it was strong enough to make me adjust my grip on the wheel. The sky had gone from orange to a deep, bruised purple, and I could see dust devils spinning in the scrubland off to the south. Texas dust storms aren't like anything else. I've driven through rain, snow, fog thick enough to cut with a knife. But dust is different. It's alive. It gets into everything. Your cab, your lungs, your head. And when it comes at you at 70 miles an hour on an empty highway, it can make you see things that aren't there. The CB radio crackled. Breaker 19, this is Iron Horse. Anybody got ears out there? I grabbed the handset. This is Longshot. Go ahead, Iron Horse. You eastbound on I-20, Longshot? That's affirmative. Well, you better watch yourself. Weather Service is calling for a big one rolling in from the southwest. Zero visibility, they're saying. Might want to find a place to hole up. I glanced at the clock. 9:15. If I stopped now, I'd miss my delivery window. Appreciate the heads up, Iron Horse. I'll keep an eye on it. Your funeral, brother. Iron Horse out. The radio went silent, except for the low hiss of static. I should have listened to him. Christ. I should have pulled into the next truck stop and waited it out. But I had bills piling up, an ex-wife who needed her alimony check, and a dispatch supervisor who'd made it clear that missing deadlines meant finding a new job. So I kept driving. The wind got worse. By 9:30, tumbleweeds were rolling across the highway like bowling balls, and I had to swerve twice to avoid them. The sky had gone completely black. Not night black, but something deeper, like looking into a well with no bottom. No stars, no moon. Just that blackness pressing down on everything. That's when I saw the first real sign of the storm. On the horizon, perhaps 5 miles away, a wall of dust was visible. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the darkness, but then my headlights caught it. A massive, churning cloud stretching from the ground to some point in that black sky. It looked solid, as if you could drive your truck right into it and it wouldn't stop you. The hair on my arms stood up. I'd seen dust storms before, plenty of them, but nothing like this. This was biblical. This was the kind of thing that made ancient people invent gods. I thought about turning around. There was an exit about 10 miles back, a little nothing town called Stanton with a gas station and a diner. I could park there, grab some food, wait for the storm to pass. It was the smart thing to do. But something kept me going. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was pride. Or maybe, and this is what I think about late at night when I can't sleep, maybe it was something else. Something in that storm calling to me. The wall of dust kept getting closer. I could see it now in detail, the way it rolled and twisted, the darker shapes inside it that might have been debris or might have been something else. The temperature in the cab dropped about 10 degrees in as many minutes. I turned the heat on, but it didn't help. The cold wasn't coming from outside. At 10 o'clock, the storm hit. 1 second I could see the road ahead, the white lines, the reflective mile markers. The next second, nothing. Just red-brown dust so thick it looked like I'd driven into a wall of rust-colored concrete. My headlights didn't penetrate more than a few feet. I hit the brakes, not hard, but enough to slow down to maybe 30 miles an hour. The sound was incredible. Not just the wind, but something else. A deep, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It made my teeth ache. It made the fillings in my molars vibrate. And underneath that hum, there was something else. Something that sounded almost like voices, but too low and too far away to make out words. I turned on the CB, thinking maybe someone else was out here. Maybe I could get a position check. But all I got was static. Not normal static either. This was rhythmic, pulsing, like breathing, like something on the other end of the radio was listening. "Hello?" I said into the handset. "This is Longshot on I-20 eastbound. Anybody out there?" The static pulsed. In, out, in, out. "Iron Horse, you still out there, buddy?" In, out, in, out. I hung up the handset. My hand was shaking. The dust was so thick now that I couldn't see the hood of my own truck. I was driving blind, keeping the wheel straight and hoping like hell that I was still on the road. Every few seconds, something would thump against the trailer. Probably tumbleweeds, I told myself. Just tumbleweeds. That's when I saw the first set of lights. They appeared in my mirrors, 2 pinpoints of white that seemed to float in the red-brown soup behind me. Headlights. Another truck probably, or maybe a car. Someone else stupid enough to be out here. I felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't alone out here. Whatever this storm was throwing at us, there were at least 2 of us facing it. But then I noticed something odd. The lights weren't moving. They stayed at the exact same distance, no matter how fast or slow I went. When I sped up to 40, they sped up. When I slowed to 25, they slowed. Perfect synchronization. I grabbed the CB again. "This is Longshot to the vehicle behind me. You on this channel?" Static, breathing static. "Hey, if you can hear me, flash your lights twice." The lights in my mirror didn't change. They just stayed there, 2 white eyes staring through the dust. A chill ran down my spine. I pressed the accelerator, pushing the truck up to 50. Too fast for these conditions, I knew, but I wanted to see if those lights would follow. They did, still at the exact same distance. I slowed back down, my heart hammering. "Okay," I told myself. "It's just another trucker. Maybe his CB is busted. Maybe he's just following my taillights to stay on the road." Makes sense. That makes perfect sense. But it didn't feel right. The wind screamed, the cab shook. Dust was finding its way in through seams I didn't know existed, coating everything in a fine red powder. I could taste it on my tongue, metallic, ancient, like sucking on rusty nails, and those lights kept following. At 10:30, I passed a road sign, or at least I think I did. It flashed past so quickly in the dust that I barely caught it, but something about it was wrong. The sign said, "Mile marker 157." I'd passed mile marker 157 20 minutes ago. I was sure of it. I'd been watching the markers, counting them down. I should have been at marker 170 by now, maybe even 175. I told myself I'd misread it. Easy to do in this soup. But then, 5 minutes later, another sign appeared. Mile marker 157. The same marker. Again. My hands tightened on the wheel. That wasn't possible. I'd been driving forward the whole time, never stopped, never turned around. There was no way I'd pass the same marker twice. The lights in my mirror grew brighter. I glanced up at them and my blood turned to ice. They weren't headlights anymore. They were too large, too diffuse, like they were spreading out across my entire mirror, and they were red now, not white. Deep crimson, like taillights but brighter, angry. I looked forward again, forcing myself to focus on the road, or what I hoped was still the road. The white line was barely visible through the dust, a ghostly streak that kept disappearing and reappearing. That's when I heard the sound from outside. It started as a scraping noise, like metal on asphalt. It came from somewhere behind the trailer, moving along the passenger side. The noise got louder, closer, until it was right next to my cab. I couldn't see anything through the passenger window, just that wall of red-brown dust, but I could hear it. Something was out there, dragging itself alongside my truck. The scraping stopped at my door. I held my breath. The wind howled. The dust beat against the windows like 1,000 tiny fists, and in my side mirror, those red lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Then, slowly, something began to materialize in the passenger window. It was a shape, vaguely human, but wrong, all angles and shadows. It kept pace with my truck, gliding through the dust storm like it was swimming through water. I couldn't make out details, couldn't see a face or features, just that dark silhouette moving in perfect synchronization with my speed. I slammed the accelerator to the floor. The big diesel engine roared, and the truck lurched forward. 55, 60, 65. The trailer fishtailed slightly, but I didn't care. I had to get away from whatever that was. The shape in the window fell back, disappearing into the dust. The red lights in my mirror receded. For about 30 seconds I thought I'd lost them. Then the radio came to life. It wasn't static this time. It was a voice. Low, distorted, but definitely a voice. It said one word, stop. I nearly drove off the road. My hands jerked the wheel, and the truck swerved hard to the left. I corrected, overcorrected, felt the trailer start to jackknife. Through sheer luck and 23 years of experience, I managed to straighten out without flipping the whole rig. Jesus Christ, I breathed, my heart trying to punch through my ribs. The voice came again, clearer this time. Stop the truck, Wyatt. It knew my name. How the hell did it know my name? I grabbed the CB handset, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Who is this? How do you know my name? Static, just static. Answer me, goddammit! The radio went dead. Not static, not breathing, just dead air. I twisted the volume knob. Nothing. I cycled through channels. Nothing. The radio was completely fried. I threw the handset down and focused on driving. The dust was still everywhere, the visibility still zero, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted out. Out of this storm, off this highway, away from whatever the hell was following me. The speedometer crept up to 70. Too fast, way too fast for these conditions, but I couldn't make myself slow down. Every instinct was screaming at me to run. That's when the engine sputtered. No, I said. No, 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 don't you dare. The engine coughed, coughed again. The check engine light flashed on. I'd filled up in Pecos. I had a full tank. The fuel gauge said 3/4. There was no reason for the engine to be cutting out, but it was. The truck started to slow. 70 became 60. 60 became 50. I pumped the accelerator, nothing. The engine was dying, and there wasn't a damn thing I could do about it. "Come on," I pleaded with the trucker. "Come on, baby, don't do this to me." 40 miles an hour, 30, 20. In my mirrors, those red lights appeared again. Closer now. Much closer. The engine gave one final shudder and quit. The cab went dark. All the dashboard lights, the headlights, everything. The only illumination came from those red lights behind me, painting the inside of my cab in bloody crimson. I sat there in the darkness, the wind screaming outside, dust battering the windows. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. I reached for my phone, thinking I'd call 911, call anyone. The phone was dead. Full battery when I'd checked it an hour ago, now completely black. The red lights grew brighter. I could see them now in both mirrors, approaching from behind. They weren't attached to any vehicle I could see, just two orbs of crimson light floating through the dust storm. As they got closer, I realized they were bigger than I'd thought. Way bigger. Each light was the size of a dinner plate, pulsing with that same heartbeat rhythm. They stopped about 20 feet behind my trailer. I waited, frozen, my hands still gripping the useless steering wheel. The wind continued to howl. The dust continued to hammer the truck. And those lights just sat there, watching. Then, very slowly, they started to move. Not forward or backward, sideways. They drifted to the left, disappearing from my driver's side mirror, reappearing in the passenger mirror. They circled my truck like a predator sizing up prey. My mouth was so dry I couldn't swallow. Every rational thought in my head was telling me this wasn't real. This was some kind of hallucination brought on by exhaustion in the storm. But I could feel it. The presence of something outside my truck. Something old and patient and hungry. The lights completed their circle and stopped directly in front of my cab. I could see them through the windshield now, barely visible through the dust. They hung there in the air, maybe 10 feet off the ground, pulsing, watching. I don't know how long we stayed like that. Could have been seconds, could have been hours. Time felt wrong, elastic, like it was stretching and compressing randomly. Then the lights rushed forward. They hit the windshield with no sound, no impact. Just suddenly they were there, filling my vision with red. The glass didn't break, nothing touched me, but I felt something, a cold that went deeper than skin, deeper than bone. It felt like fingers made of ice water reaching into my chest and squeezing my heart. I screamed. I think I screamed. The sound might have only been in my head. And just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The lights were gone. The darkness was complete. I couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything except my own ragged breathing and the wind outside. Then, with a shudder and a cough, the engine turned over. All the lights in the cab flashed on. The radio blared static. The check engine light was dark. It was like nothing had happened. I sat there, trembling, staring at the dashboard. My hands were still locked on the wheel in a death grip. Very slowly, I pried my fingers loose. They ached from how hard I'd been holding on. The dust storm was already starting to clear. I could see the road ahead now, the white lines, a green exit sign maybe half a mile up. The storm was blowing east, moving away from me with that same impossible speed it had arrived with. I put the truck in gear and drove. I didn't think. I didn't analyze. I just drove, keeping my eyes locked on that exit sign like it was a lighthouse and I was drowning. The exit led to a truck stop. Lonnie's 24-hour, the sign said. I pulled into the lot and parked in the first available space. My whole body was shaking. I tried to light a cigarette 3 times before I could hold the lighter steady enough. There were maybe 6 other trucks in the lot. Through the diner windows, I could see drivers sitting at the counter, eating, drinking coffee, acting like it was just another normal night. I wanted to go in there, tell them what I'd seen, but I knew how it would sound. Crazy. It would sound crazy. I checked my phone. It was working again. 11:47 p.m. I'd been on that highway in that storm for less than 2 hours. It had felt like days. I called dispatch, told them I'd had mechanical trouble and would make the delivery first thing in the morning. The supervisor wasn't happy, but he didn't push it. Said to get some rest and hit the road at dawn. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my cab, smoking, watching the eastern horizon where the storm had disappeared. Every now and then I'd see distant lightning, red lightning, not white. And sometimes in the flashes, I thought I could see shapes moving inside the clouds. Shapes that looked almost like trucks, but wrong somehow, distorted. At 5 a.m., I started the engine and headed for Abilene. The delivery went fine. The customer signed the paperwork. Everything was normal. But I couldn't stop thinking about those red lights, about that voice on the radio that knew my name, about that moment when time stopped and something looked inside me. I drove I-20 3 more times over the next month. I told myself I wasn't looking for anything, but that was a lie. Every time dusk started to fall and that burning orange sky appeared, I'd find my hands tightening on the wheel. I'd watch the mirrors a little more carefully. I'd keep the radio on, listening through the static for that voice. It never came back. But sometimes, late at night when I'm driving that empty stretch between Pecos and Abilene, I see something in my mirrors. Just a flicker. Just for a second. 2 points of light that might be headlights, or might be something else. 3 weeks after that night, I was back on I-20. Different load this time. Automotive parts heading east from Midland. It was early afternoon, the sun high and brutal, turning the asphalt into a ribbon of black glass. The kind of heat that made the air shimmer and dance, made distances impossible to judge. I should have learned my lesson, should have requested different routes, avoided that stretch of highway altogether. But the truth is, I couldn't stay away. That night had gotten under my skin like a splinter working its way deeper. I needed to know if it was real. If any of it was real. The radio was playing Merle Haggard when I passed mile marker 157. I'd been watching for it, counting down the markers like a countdown to execution. 165, 163, 160, 158. And there it was. Just a regular green sign with white numbers, nothing special about it. Nothing to indicate that this was where the impossible had happened. I took a deep breath and kept driving. The afternoon stretched out long and lazy. A few other trucks passed going west. A family in an SUV with Oklahoma plates. An old pickup that looked like it had been held together with rust and prayers. Normal traffic. Normal day. But the sky was wrong. I noticed it around 3 o'clock. The blue was too pale, washed out, like someone had left it in the sun too long. And on the western horizon there was a haze that didn't look like normal heat distortion. It was too uniform, too dense, like smoke from a massive fire, except there was no smell of burning. By 4 o'clock, the haze had spread. It covered half the sky now, turning the sun into a dim orange coin. The temperature in the cab started to drop, even though the sun was still up. I turned off the AC and watched the thermometer on my dashboard fall from 98 degrees to 85 in less than 10 minutes. The CB crackled. "Westbound traffic. This is Smokey at mile marker 180. You boys seeing this weather coming in?" I grabbed the handset. "Eastbound at 165, I see it. Looks like another dust storm." "Yeah, but in October, this ain't dust season." He was right. Dust storms in West Texas usually came in spring, maybe early summer. October was too late, too cool. But there it was, that wall of dust building on the horizon, same as before. Weather Service ain't saying nothing about it, Smokey continued. Checked my phone. Clear skies, they say, clear skies all week. I looked at the approaching wall of dust. It was maybe 15 miles out now, and growing. Yeah, well, somebody forgot to tell Mother Nature. Ain't natural, is what I'm saying. This whole thing ain't right. Something in his voice made me uneasy. What do you mean? I mean, I've been running this route for 30 years, and I ain't never seen weather move like that. It's too fast, too, I don't know, organized, like it's got a purpose. I wanted to argue with him, tell him he was being paranoid. But I'd seen what I'd seen 3 weeks ago. I knew he wasn't wrong. You pulling off? I asked. Damn right I am. There's a rest area at marker 195. I'm gonna wait this one out. Roger that. Safe travels, Smokey. You too, driver. And hey, if you're thinking about pushing through, don't. Whatever that thing is, it ain't worth it. The radio went silent. I looked at the storm again. It was closer now, maybe 10 miles. I could see the details, the roiling, churning surface, the tendrils that reached down like grasping fingers. And deep inside it, there were flashes of red light. Lightning, probably, just lightning. I should have listened to Smokey, should have found a place to park and wait. But that splinter in my mind was working deeper, and I needed to know. Needed to understand what had happened to me. So I kept driving. The storm swallowed the sun at 4:47 p.m. 1 minute there was light, diluted in orange, but still light. The next minute, darkness. Complete and total, like someone had thrown a blanket over the world. I turned on my headlights. They cut through maybe 20 feet of dust before dissipating into that red-brown murk. I slowed to 40, then 30, watching the white line at the edge of the road like my life depended on it. Because it did. The wind hit with the sound of a freight train. The whole truck shuddered, pushed sideways by a gust that must have been 70, 80 miles an hour. I fought the wheel, keeping the truck on the road through sheer muscle and will. And then, just like before, I heard the hum. It started low, barely audible over the wind. But it built quickly. That deep, resonant frequency that made my bones ache and my vision blur at the edges. I could feel it in my chest, in my skull, in the roots of my teeth. Not again, I whispered. Please, not again. The radio clicked on by itself. Static at first, that same breathing rhythm. In, out, in, out. Then, cutting through the static, a voice. But not the same voice from before. This was different, higher, younger, desperate. Help me. My hands jerked on the wheel. Who is this? Please, I'm lost. I can't find the road. Help me. It sounded like a kid. A teenage boy, maybe, scared and alone. Every instinct told me this was wrong, this was a trick, but what if it wasn't? What if there really was someone out there in this storm? Where are you? I asked into the handset. I don't know. I can't see anything. Please, I see your lights. I'm right behind you. I checked my mirrors. Nothing but dust and darkness. I don't see you, I said. Can you describe where you are? Behind you. I'm right behind you. Can't you see me? My heart started to pound. Listen to me. If you're in a vehicle, pull over and wait. Don't try to drive in this. I'm not in a vehicle. The voice was clearer now, less static. I'm outside. I've been outside for so long. Please stop. Please help me. Outside. He claimed he was outside, in a dust storm with zero visibility and winds strong enough to flip a car. Nobody could survive out there. This isn't real, I said, more to myself than to the voice. You're not real. I'm real. I'm so real, and I'm so close to you now, Wyatt, so very close. It used my name. I slammed my foot on the brake without thinking. The truck shuddered to a stop, the trailer fishtailing slightly before settling. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the radio handset in my hand. The voice laughed. It wasn't a human laugh. It was the sound of wind through a canyon, of metal scraping stone, of something ancient and hungry finally getting what it wanted. "There," the voice said. "Now we can talk properly." I dropped the handset like it had burned me. The radio continued to broadcast, even though the handset was dangling by its cord. "Do you know what you did, Wyatt? 3 weeks ago, when you drove through my storm?" I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The darkness outside pressed against the windows like it was trying to force its way in. "You looked at me. When those lights came through your windshield, when you felt me touch your heart, you looked right at me. And once you look, once you really see, well, that changes things." The dust outside began to swirl in patterns, spirals and eddies that weren't natural, weren't random. They moved with intention, with intelligence. "I'm not here to hurt you," the voice continued. "I'm just curious. It's been so long since someone could see me. Most people, they drive right through. They feel a little cold maybe, or their radio acts up. But they don't see. You saw." "What are you?" I managed to whisper. "I'm the dust, Wyatt. I'm the wind. I'm every mile of empty road, every forgotten town, every truck that disappeared without a trace. I'm what happens when the highway gets old enough, lonely enough, hungry enough. I'm the red line." The patterns in the dust grew more complex, forming shapes that were almost recognizable, almost human. "There's a price for seeing," the voice said. "A toll, if you will. Every time you drive this road now, every time you pass through my stretch of highway, I'll be watching. I'll be waiting. And one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 10 years, I'll collect." "Collect what?" The laugh came again, that awful scraping sound. "Why, you, of course. Every truck needs a driver, Wyatt, and out here in the dust, I've got so many trucks, so many empty cabs, waiting for someone to slide behind the wheel. You'll join them eventually. They all do, the ones who see me." The temperature in the cab dropped to freezing. I could see my breath misting in the air. Frost began to form on the inside of the windshield, spreading out in intricate patterns that looked like road maps or veins. "But not tonight," the voice said, almost kindly. "Tonight, I just wanted to talk, to remind you that I'm here, that I'll always be here, waiting on I-20 between Pecos and Abilene. This is my road now, and you're my driver." The radio clicked off. The dust storm began to clear, the wind dying down from a shriek to a whisper. Within 5 minutes, I could see the road again. The stars were coming out overhead, bright and cold and indifferent. I sat there for a long time, engine idling, trying to process what had just happened. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I felt hollowed out, like something had reached inside me and scooped out everything important. When I finally started driving again, I noticed something strange. The check engine light was on, and the fuel gauge had dropped from 3/4 to 1/4. I'd been stopped for maybe 10 minutes, but hours of fuel had vanished. I checked the dashboard clock. It said 11:34 p.m. But that was impossible. The storm had hit at 4:47. I'd stopped maybe 5 minutes later. Even accounting for the time sitting there after the voice stopped talking, it couldn't be later than 6, maybe 7 at the latest. 6 hours. Somewhere, somehow, 6 hours had disappeared. I drove the rest of the way to my delivery point in silence. When I got there, a warehouse on the outskirts of Fort Stockton, the night manager took one look at me and asked if I was okay. "Fine," I lied. "Just a rough drive." He signed for the parts and I headed back west. I had to cross that stretch of I-20 again, had to pass through marker 157. The sky was clear, full of stars. No sign of dust or storms. Just empty highway stretching to the horizon. But when I passed marker 157, I swear I saw something in my mirror. Just for a second, a flicker of red light, there and gone. And the radio, even though it was turned off, gave a single burst of static, like something saying hello, or goodbye, or see you soon. After that second encounter, I tried to quit. I really did. I called my supervisor, told him I needed time off, family emergency. He wasn't happy. I had 3 scheduled runs the following week, but he approved it. 1 week, 7 days to get my head straight, to figure out what the hell was happening to me. I spent the first 2 days drinking. Not proud of it, but that's the truth. I holed up in my apartment in Odessa and tried to drown the memory of that voice. Those red lights, the missing 6 hours. It didn't work. The whiskey just made the memories sharper, more vivid. On the 3rd day, I decided to do some research. I'm not much for computers, never have been, but I drove to the public library and spent 4 hours searching through newspaper archives, trucking forums, anything I could find about I-20 and strange occurrences. What I found didn't make me feel better. There were stories going back decades. Truckers who'd disappeared on that stretch of highway, their rigs found abandoned, engines still running, no sign of the drivers. Unexplained accidents where trucks had simply driven off the road for no apparent reason, the drivers found dead in their cabs with expressions of terror on their faces. Reports of ghost lights, phantom vehicles, voices on the CB that shouldn't be there. Most of it was dismissed as urban legend, the kind of spooky stories truckers tell each other to pass the time. But buried in all that folklore, I found something that made my blood run cold. It was a forum post from 2003, written by a driver named Marcus Lawson. He described driving through a dust storm on I-20, seeing red lights in his mirrors, hearing voices on his radio. The post was rambling, barely coherent, but one line stood out. It called itself the Red Line, said it owned the highway now, said I'd seen it, and that meant I was marked. I don't know what that means, but I can't stop driving that route. Every time I try to take a different road, I end up back on I-20, like it's pulling me back, like I belong to it now. The post was dated September 12, 2003. I searched for Marcus Lawson in the news archives. He was found dead in his truck on October 3, 2003, parked on the shoulder of I-20 at mile marker 157. The medical examiner ruled it a heart attack, but the police report noted some oddities. The truck's engine was running. The radio was on, even though the keys were in Lawson's pocket, and there were marks on the inside of the windshield, long, deep scratches, like he'd been trying to claw his way out. I closed the browser and sat there, staring at the blank screen. Marcus Lawson had lasted 3 weeks after his encounter. 3 weeks before whatever was out there came to collect. I'd already been marked for 3 weeks. I drove home in a daze, my mind churning. I needed to talk to someone who might understand, someone who'd been driving these roads longer than me. There was one person I could think of, Dale Turner, an old-timer who'd been running freight since before I was born. If anyone knew the truth about I-20, it would be him. I found him at a truck stop outside Midland, exactly where I expected. Dale was a fixture there, holding court at the counter every evening, telling stories to whoever would listen. He was in his 70s, a weathered man with skin like old leather and eyes that had seen too much. I slid onto the stool next to him and ordered coffee I didn't want. "Wyatt Briggs," he said, without looking at me. Heard you've been having some trouble out on the highway." I didn't ask how he knew. Truckers talk. Word gets around. "I need to ask you some questions." Figured you might. He took a sip of his coffee. "Go ahead. The red line, what is it?" Dale went very still. For a long moment he didn't say anything. Then he set down his cup carefully, like it was made of glass. "Where'd you hear that name?" "It told me, out in the dust storm 3 weeks ago. It said it was the red line, and that I'd seen it, and that meant something. I need to know what." Dale studied my face. Whatever he saw there made him nod slowly. "All right, but not here, come on." We went out to his truck, an ancient Peterbilt that looked like it had survived the apocalypse. Dale climbed into the cab, and I followed. He pulled out a flask and took a long swallow before offering it to me. I accepted, the whiskey burning all the way down. "The red line," Dale began, "is what we used to call the dead zone. That stretch of I-20 between Pecos and Abilene. It wasn't always bad. Hell, 30 years ago it was just highway like any other. But something changed. Started in the early 90s, I think, maybe late 80s. What changed? Accidents, disappearances. At first it was just bad luck, weather, mechanical failures, driver error. But there were too many. Way too many for one stretch of road. And they all had things in common. Like what? Dust storms. Even when the weather service said it was clear. Red lights that showed up in mirrors but never matched to any vehicle. Voices on the CB, and the marks. Marks? Dale reached into his glove box and pulled out a photograph. It was old, faded, but clear enough. It showed a stretch of asphalt with dark stains on it. Long, parallel lines that looked almost like tire tracks, except they were the wrong color. Too dark. Almost black. "Chain marks," Dale said. "That's what some of the old-timers called them. They show up after the storms, after someone goes missing. Like something was dragging heavy chains across the road. Except no chains ever leave marks like that. Too straight, too perfect." I looked at the photo, my stomach churning. "What makes them?" "Same thing that talks on the radio. Same thing that shows up in your mirrors. The red line ain't a place, Wyatt. It's a thing, an entity, something that lives in the highway itself." "That's impossible." "Is it?" Dale took another pull from his flask. "Roads are strange things. They connect places, sure, but they also separate them. They carve through the landscape, dividing what was whole. And old roads that have seen enough death, enough loneliness, enough despair, they can wake up. They can become something more than just asphalt and paint." "That's insane." "Maybe, but you've seen it, you've heard it, and now you're marked, same as Marcus Lawson, same as Tommy Hayes, same as every poor bastard who looked too close and saw what was really out there." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. I'd felt it. That presence in the storm, that intelligence behind the red lights. It was real. As real as the truck I drove, the coffee I drank, the ground under my feet. "How do I get unmarked?" I asked. Dale shook his head. "You don't. Once the red line has your scent, it doesn't let go. Best you can do is avoid that stretch of highway. Stay off I-20. Take the long way around." "For how long?" "Forever, if you want to keep breathing." I stared out the windshield at the darkening sky. Forever. Never drive that route again. Never cross that section of highway. It would mean changing jobs, maybe changing my whole life. But if it kept me away from that thing... "Others have tried," Dale said quietly. "Tried to avoid it. Didn't work. The highway always pulls them back. One way or another, they end up on I-20. And when they do..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. "There's one other thing," Dale continued. "The missing time. You said you lost 6 hours. Yeah. How did you... Because everyone who survives an encounter loses time. Could be minutes, could be hours. Marcus Lawson lost 3 days. Just vanished off the face of the earth for 3 days, then turned up in his truck like nothing happened. No memory of where he'd been." "Where do we go? During the missing time?" Dale's face went pale. "That's the question, isn't it? Some folks think the red line takes you somewhere. A place that exists alongside the highway but not quite in the same world. A place where it keeps all the trucks it's collected, all the drivers it's claimed. A phantom freight yard that stretches on forever. That's just a story, right?" Dale didn't answer. He just took another drink and stared out at the gathering darkness. I left Dale's truck feeling worse than before. If he was right, if the red line really did mark people, claim them, pull them back no matter how hard they tried to stay away, then I was already dead, just waiting for the final collection. But I'm stubborn. My old man used to say I was too stubborn to die, and maybe he was right. I decided I wouldn't go down without a fight. If the red line wanted me, it would have to work for it. I went back to work the following week, but I requested different routes, different highways. I-10, I-40, US 287, anywhere but I-20. My supervisor grumbled about it, said I was being difficult, but he approved the changes. For 2 weeks, it worked. I drove thousands of miles without seeing a single dust storm, without hearing a single strange voice on the radio. I started to think maybe I'd beaten it. Maybe I was the exception, the one who got away. Then came the night of November 8th. I was hauling refrigerated goods from El Paso to Oklahoma City, a straight shot up US 287. It was a clear night, no weather in the forecast, no problems expected. I was making good time, already past Amarillo, when the GPS suddenly rerouted. "In 500 feet, exit right onto I-20 East," the mechanical voice announced. I stared at the screen. That couldn't be right. I-20 was nowhere near my route. I-20 was 100 miles south. "Recalculating," I said, canceling the route and re-entering my destination. The GPS thought for a moment, then, "In 300 feet, exit right onto I-20 East." A chill ran down my spine. I looked at the road signs ahead. Sure enough, there was an exit coming up, but the sign didn't say I-20. It said US 60. I ignored the GPS and drove straight through. For about 10 minutes, everything seemed fine. Then the GPS spoke again. "You are on I-20 East." "No, I'm not," I said to the empty cab. "I'm on 287. But when I looked at the mile markers, my blood turned to ice. Mile marker 157. I was on I-20. Somehow, impossibly, I was back on that cursed stretch of highway. But I hadn't exited. I hadn't turned. I'd been driving straight the entire time. The red line had pulled me back. And that's when I saw the dust on the horizon. The storm came fast. Faster than last time. Faster than should be possible. One moment the sky was clear, stars bright overhead. The next moment, a wall of dust so massive it blotted out half the horizon. I floored the accelerator. The truck surged forward, the speedometer climbing past 70, 80. I knew it was useless. The storm had chased me down twice before. But I had to try, had to fight. The storm caught me at marker 162. The darkness came all at once, like a curtain falling. The headlights showed nothing but churning dust. The wind slammed into the truck hard enough to push it sideways. I corrected, overcorrected, felt the whole rig start to sway. And then I heard it, not on the radio this time. This was coming from outside, all around me. the voice of the red line, vast and terrible and patient. There you are. The red lights appeared in my mirrors, both sides this time, boxing me in. They pulsed with that heartbeat rhythm, and now I could see they weren't lights at all. They were eyes. Enormous eyes made of dust and darkness and something older than the highway itself. "You tried to run," the voice said. It sounded amused. "I appreciate that. Most don't even try. But you must understand by now. There's no running from what you've seen, what you've become." "I'm not yours," I said through gritted teeth. "You don't own me." The laugh came, that awful scraping sound. "Oh, Wyatt, I've owned you since the moment you looked at me. Since the moment your heart touched mine through the glass. You're part of the red line now. You always were." The temperature dropped. Frost spread across the windshield in patterns that looked like roads, like intersections, like the entire highway system rendered in ice. "Do you know what I am?" the voice asked. "Really? You're a ghost story. A hallucination. You're not real. I'm more real than you. I'm the sum of every mile driven in loneliness, every hour spent staring at an empty road, every thought of driving off into the desert and never coming back. I'm the weight of isolation, the madness of distance. I'm what the highway becomes when it's been empty long enough." The dust outside formed shapes. I could see them now. Trucks, dozens of them, hundreds maybe. Phantom vehicles made of swirling dust, driving alongside me, matching my speed. And in the cabs I could see silhouettes. Drivers who'd never left the highway. "Marcus Lawson is here," the voice said. "Tommy Hayes, Sarah Jennings, Roy McKenzie, all the drivers who saw me, who tried to run. They're all part of the red line now, driving forever, keeping the highway alive. No. Yes. And soon you'll join them. Tonight, I think. I've been patient, given you time to understand, but the collection is due." The phantom trucks began to close in. I could hear engines that weren't there, feel the pressure of their mass even though they were made of nothing but dust. They surrounded me, hemming me in, guiding me toward something I couldn't yet see. "Where are you taking me?" "To the freight yard. The place where the marked drivers go. It exists alongside the highway, Wyatt. Just a little bit to the left of reality. You'll like it there. No traffic, no deadlines. Just endless driving, forever and ever. Fuck you." I yanked the wheel hard to the right, aiming for what I hoped was the shoulder. The truck lurched, tires screaming. For a moment I thought I'd make it. Thought I'd break free of the phantom convoy. Then the chain marks appeared. They materialized on the road ahead, those long, dark streaks Dale had shown me in the photograph. Except these weren't old stains. These were fresh, smoking, like they'd been burned into the asphalt, and they were moving. The marks slithered across the road like snakes, forming patterns, forming symbols. They spiraled and crossed and knotted together until they created something that looked almost like a door, a gap in reality, shimmering with red light. "There it is," the voice said softly. "The entrance to the freight yard. Drive through, Wyatt. Join your brothers and sisters. Become part of the red line." The phantom trucks pushed closer, forcing me toward the door. I could see through it now, see what waited on the other side. An endless parking lot filled with trucks. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, all coated in red dust. And in every cab a driver sat motionless, hands on the wheel, eyes fixed on nothing. "No," I whispered. "No, please." "It's not so bad," the voice said. "You'll never be lonely again. Never tired, never bored. Just you and the highway forever." I was 10 feet from the door when I saw him. Dale Turner. He was standing on the shoulder, just visible through the dust. But this was wrong. Dale was alive, back at the truck stop in Midland. Except the figure I saw wasn't quite Dale. It was a version of him, decades younger, wearing clothes from another era. The figure raised one hand, not a wave, a warning. And that's when I understood. Dale hadn't just known about the red line. He'd survived it. Somehow, impossibly, he'd been marked and escaped. That's why he knew so much. That's why he'd shown me the photograph, told me the stories. He'd been trying to prepare me for this moment. I thought about what he'd said, about the red line being a thing that lived in the highway, that fed on loneliness and isolation, about how it marked people who looked too closely. But he'd also said something else, something I'd almost missed. Old roads that have seen enough death can wake up. Wake up, which meant they could also sleep. I grabbed the CB handset, even though the radio was dead. "You're not the highway," I said. "You're a parasite. Something that infected it, grew in it, fed on it. But you're not the road itself." The dust went still. The phantom trucks stopped moving. Even the wind seemed to pause. "You think you understand me?" the voice said, and for the first time I heard uncertainty in it. "You need drivers. You need us to feed you, to keep you real. That's why you mark people. That's why you pull them back. Without drivers, you're just dust. Careful, Wyatt. That's why you haven't collected me yet." 3 weeks, Dale said. "Marcus Lawson lasted 3 weeks. But it's been longer than that for me. Why? Because I keep driving. I keep moving. And as long as I'm moving, as long as I'm still free, I'm more useful to you than I would be trapped in your freight yard." The red lights in my mirrors flickered. The door ahead began to fade. "You're feeding on my fear," I continued. "On my desperation. Every time I drive I-20, every time I pass marker 157, you get stronger. But if I stop being afraid, if I stop giving you power, enough." The voice was thunder, earthquake, avalanche. The phantom trucks rushed forward, dozens of them, their grills like teeth. The door blazed with red light. The chain marks burned so bright they lit up the dust storm. "You will join the red line," the voice roared. "You will drive for me. You will—" I let go of the wheel. It was insane. Suicidal. At 80 miles an hour, in zero visibility. Letting go of the wheel was a death sentence. But I did it anyway. I took my hands off, put them in my lap, and closed my eyes. "If you want me," I said quietly, "you'll have to take me. I won't drive into your freight yard. I won't join your collection. You can crash my truck, kill me, whatever, but I won't choose it." The cab went silent. The wind stopped. The hum ceased. Even the engine seemed to quiet, though I could still feel it vibrating through the seat. I opened my eyes. The dust was clearing, not slowly this time, all at once, like a curtain being yanked away. The phantom trucks were gone. The door was gone. The chain marks had faded to nothing. I was on I-20, hands in my lap, truck coasting at maybe 30 miles an hour. The road ahead was clear. The stars were out. It was just highway, just empty Texas highway. I grabbed the wheel again, hands shaking so badly I could barely hold on. I looked in the mirrors. Nothing. No red lights. No dust, nothing. The radio clicked on, normal static, no breathing rhythm. Then a voice cut through, but this time it was human, real. "Eastbound traffic at marker 157. This is westbound at 180. You okay out there? Saw some weird weather blow through." I grabbed the handset. "I'm okay, yeah, I'm okay." "Good to hear. Drive safe." "You too." I drove the rest of the way in silence. When I reached my delivery point in Abilene, it was 3:47 a.m. According to my log, I'd left El Paso at 8 o'clock p.m. 7 hours, 47 minutes. No missing time. I'd beaten it. Somehow, impossibly, I'd beaten the red line. But as I sat there in the cab watching the sun come up over the flat Texas landscape, I knew it wasn't over. The red line was patient. It had waited in that highway for decades, maybe longer. It could wait for me. I still drive I-20. I have to. It's part of my route, part of the job. But every time I pass marker 157, I feel it watching. Sometimes I see dust devils spinning in the distance, even on calm days. Sometimes the radio crackles with that breathing static. Sometimes, late at night, I think I can see red lights in my mirrors, but I don't run anymore. I don't speed up, don't pull over, don't let the fear take control. I just drive. Steady, calm, refusing to give it what it wants. Because I learned something that night. The red line feeds on fear, on submission, on that moment when you accept that you're trapped. But if you refuse, if you keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road and your mind clear, it has no power over you, most of the time. There are still bad nights. Nights when the dust rises without warning, and the temperature drops, and I hear that voice whispering my name. On those nights, I grip the wheel tighter, and I think about Dale Turner, about how he survived, about how he's still out there driving after all these years. If he can do it, so can I. At least, that's what I tell myself. But sometimes, when I'm alone on that stretch of highway late at night, I look in my mirrors and I see them, the phantom trucks, barely visible, keeping pace. And I wonder how many of those drivers thought the same thing I'm thinking. How many of them believed they'd beaten the red line, right up until the moment it collected them. I don't know when it will come for me. Tomorrow, next week, 10 years from now. But it will come. The red line always collects what it's owed. I just hope I have enough road left before then. The last time I spoke to Dale was 2 weeks ago. I called him, asked him how long he'd been marked, how many years he'd been driving that highway, feeling it watch him. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, 43 years, Wyatt. 43 years of driving past marker 157, of seeing those dust storms rise, of hearing my name on the radio. And you know what the worst part is? What? I can't remember what my life was like before. Before the marking, before the red line. Sometimes I think maybe I've been driving for a lot longer than 43 years. Maybe I've been driving forever, and everything else, my family, my home, my life off the highway, maybe that's the dream. Maybe this is all there is. Just me and the road and that thing waiting in the dust. He hung up before I could respond. I haven't been able to reach him since. His phone goes straight to voicemail. The truck stop says they haven't seen him in days. And last night, when I passed through Midland, I stopped at that parking lot where his old Peterbilt used to sit. It was gone. In its place, there was nothing but red dust and a set of chain marks leading off into the desert. So I'm writing this down. All of it. What happened to me, what the red line is, how to survive if you ever encounter it. I'm posting it online, sending copies to trucking forums, truck stops, anywhere drivers might see it. If you drive I-20 between Pecos and Abilene, be careful. Watch for dust storms that don't match the weather forecast. Watch for red lights in your mirrors. Watch for voices on the radio that know your name. And if you see marker 157, if you feel that presence watching you from the dust, remember this. Don't run. Don't speed. Don't give it your fear. Just drive. Keep your hands on the wheel, your eyes on the road. Refuse to be collected. It might not save you, but it might buy you time. And out here on the red line, time is all any of us have left. I'm heading back out tonight. Another load, another deadline, another run across I-20. The sun is setting now, turning the sky that burning orange color. The wind is picking up from the southwest. There's dust on the horizon. I don't know if I'll make it through this time. Don't know if the trick with letting go of the wheel will work again, or if the red line has learned from that mistake. But I'm going anyway. Because this is what I do. This is who I am. I'm a trucker, and truckers drive. Even when the road is alive, even when something ancient waits in the dust, even when every instinct screams at me to turn around, to take a different route, to never come back to this cursed stretch of highway. I drive, and maybe that's exactly what the red line wants. Maybe I've been playing into its hands all along, thinking I'm refusing it while actually feeding it exactly what it needs. I'll find out soon enough. The storm is closer now. I can see it in my mirrors, that massive wall of churning dust moving faster than any natural storm. The radio is already starting to crackle. The red lights haven't appeared yet, but they will. They always do. I just passed marker 157. The temperature is dropping, and somewhere in the dust ahead I can hear it calling my name. My name is Cole Mason, and I've been hauling freight for 11 years. Not as long as some of the old-timers, but long enough to know the routes, to trust my instincts, to recognize when something's off. That Tuesday in March started normal enough. I picked up a load of drilling equipment in Amarillo, destination a site outside Odessa. The dispatcher gave me the usual route. Take I-27 south, merge onto I-20 west, straight shot across the Permian Basin. 6 hours, maybe 7, with traffic and a fuel stop. Easy money. The sky was that pale, washed-out blue you get in West Texas, stretched tight over flat scrubland that seemed to go on forever. Temperature was climbing, already 85 by 10 in the morning, and it wasn't even noon yet. I had the AC cranked, classic rock on the radio, and a full thermos of coffee. Everything was exactly as it should be. I merged onto I-20 around 11:30. Traffic was light, a few passenger cars, the occasional RV with out-of-state plates, and one other semi about half a mile ahead. The kind of peaceful, monotonous driving that lets your mind wander. I was thinking about my daughter's birthday next week, wondering if I'd make it home in time for the party, when my phone buzzed. Text from dispatch. Route change. GPS updated. Follow new directions. I frowned at the screen. Route changes weren't common, but they happened. Road construction, accidents, whatever. I waited for the GPS to recalculate. The mechanical voice chimed in. In 2 miles, take exit 87 onto County Road 1215 South. County Road 1215. I didn't recognize it, but that didn't mean much. There were hundreds of county roads crisscrossing West Texas, most of them little more than paved strips connecting oil fields and ranch land. If dispatch said to take it, there was probably a good reason. The exit came up fast. No other vehicles took it. They all continued west on I-20. The exit ramp curved south into emptiness, and as I descended, the highway disappeared behind a low rise. Within seconds, it was like I-20 had never existed. Just me, my truck, and a 2-lane county road stretching into heat-shimmer distance. The landscape changed immediately. On the interstate, there'd been the occasional billboard. Mile markers, those blue signs indicating services at the next exit. Out here, nothing. Just scrub brush, scattered mesquite trees, and red dirt that looked like it hadn't seen rain in months. The road itself was newer than I expected, smooth asphalt, fresh yellow lines down the center. Someone had money to maintain this route. I drove for 20 minutes without seeing another vehicle. Not unusual for a county road, but still. The silence started to get to me. I turned up the radio, but the station was fading in and out, replaced by static every few seconds. I tried scanning for something clearer, but every frequency was the same. Bursts of music, then static, then silence. Weird, I muttered, giving up and turning it off. The GPS spoke again. Continue on County Road 1215 for 43 miles. 43 miles on a county road seemed excessive, but the GPS hadn't steered me wrong before. I settled in, watching the odometer tick upward, counting off the miles. That's when I started noticing the tire tracks. They appeared around mile marker 15, dark streaks on the asphalt, the kind left by heavily loaded trucks. Fresh, too. The rubber still had that tacky look, like the vehicle had passed through recently. I felt a strange sense of relief. I wasn't completely alone out here. But as I followed the road, something started bothering me. The tire tracks never deviated. They stayed in the center of the lane, perfectly straight, mile after mile. No wobble, no correction, no variation at all. Like the truck had been on autopilot, or like something had dragged it. I shook off the thought. Too many late nights, too much time alone on the road. Tire tracks were tire tracks, nothing sinister about them. At mile 30, I passed the first structure I'd seen since leaving I-20, an abandoned service station. The pumps were still there, ancient things that looked like they hadn't dispensed gas since the 70s. The building was sun-bleached concrete, windows boarded up, roof sagging. But what caught my attention was the sign. It was new, or at least newer than everything else. A green road sign, the kind you see on highways, mounted on a metal post next to the station. It read, Freight Route 1215, no services next 60 miles. Freight Route 1215. I'd never heard of it. Most freight routes were federal or state highways, not county roads. But there it was, official looking, government issued. I pulled out my phone to check the map, see if this route was marked. No signal, not even one bar. I'd had full signal on I-20, but out here, nothing. Shit, I said to the empty cab. The GPS chimed in as if reading my mind. Continue on Freight Route 1215 for 13 miles. Freight Route. Even the GPS was calling it that now. I kept driving. The sun was directly overhead, turning the cab into an oven despite the AC. Sweat dripped down my back. My mouth felt dry, cotton-like, but I'd already finished the thermos and I hadn't seen anywhere to refill. The tire tracks were getting darker, more pronounced, like whatever had left them was getting heavier. At mile 40, the landscape changed again. The scrub brush thinned out, replaced by bare dirt and scattered rocks. The mesquite trees were gone. It looked more like desert now, though we were too far north for true desert. The kind of place where nothing lived, where the earth itself seemed dead. That's when I saw the first truck. It was parked on the shoulder maybe 200 yards ahead, a semi similar to mine, but older. The trailer was rust red, or maybe just covered in dust. Hard to tell from a distance. No lights, no movement, just sitting there. As I got closer, details emerged. The truck was a Freightliner, probably from the early 2000s. The tires were flat or nearly flat. The windows were tinted too dark to see inside. And covering every surface, the cab, the trailer, even the wheels, was a thick layer of red dust. I slowed down as I passed. No driver visible. No indication of why it had been abandoned. But the tire tracks on the road, those dark, perfect streaks, they started right where this truck was parked. My stomach tightened. I glanced in my side mirror as the abandoned truck receded behind me. For just a second, I thought I saw movement in the cab. A shadow shifting behind the tinted glass. I looked forward again, my heart hammering. Just your imagination, I told myself. just the heat and the isolation playing tricks. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching me from that truck. The GPS spoke. In 5 miles, merge onto Route 1215 alternate. Route 1215 alternate. I hadn't seen any indication of an alternate route. No signs, no turnoffs, just this endless straight road. 4 miles later, I saw it. The road forked. The main route continued straight, but a second road, narrower, rougher, branched off to the southwest. There was no sign indicating which way to go, no route markers, nothing. Turn right onto Route 1215 alternate, the GPS instructed. I hesitated. The alternate route looked worse. More cracks in the asphalt, no center line, no shoulder. It disappeared into a heat shimmer about half a mile out, making it impossible to see where it led. But the GPS said to turn, and I'd already come this far. I took the turn. The road immediately got rougher. The smooth ride of the main route gave way to potholes and buckled pavement. The truck bounced and groaned with every irregularity. I had to slow to 40, then 30, just to keep the trailer from fishtailing. The tire tracks were still there. Still perfect. Still dark. 10 minutes into the alternate route, I passed another abandoned truck, then another, then 3 more, all parked at irregular intervals along the shoulder, all covered in that same red dust, all silent, dead, empty. "What the hell is this place?" I whispered. The GPS didn't answer. I'd been driving for over 2 hours since leaving I-20. According to the GPS, I was still 30 miles from Odessa. But something felt wrong. The sun was too low in the sky. It should still be afternoon, but it looked more like late evening. Long shadows stretched across the road, even though it was only 1 o'clock. I checked my phone again. Still no signal, but the clock showed 1:47 p.m., which matched my dashboard. So why did it feel later? Ahead, the road curved for the first time since I'd taken the exit. A gentle bend to the left, following the contour of a low ridge. As I rounded the curve, I saw something that made my breath catch. A dust storm. It rose from the western horizon like a wall, massive and dark and churning. But it wasn't moving toward me. It was just sitting there, stationary, like it was waiting. "Turn around," I said out loud. "Turn this truck around right now." But even as I said it, I knew I couldn't. The road was too narrow, the shoulder too soft. If I tried to turn around, I'd get stuck. My only option was forward. The GPS chimed, "Continue on Route 1215 alternate for 12 miles. 12 miles. That storm was maybe 10 miles out. I'd hit it long before I reached my destination. I pressed the accelerator, pushing the truck up to 50 despite the rough road. The trailer bounced and swayed, but I didn't care. I had to get through that storm, or around it, or... The engine sputtered. "No," I said, my voice sharp with panic. "Not now. Not here." The truck kept rolling, but the engine had lost power. The speedometer dropped to 40, then 30. I checked the fuel gauge. Half a tank, plenty of fuel, but the engine was dying anyway. 20 miles an hour. 15. The truck coasted to a stop right in the center of the road. The engine gave one final shudder and quit. All the dashboard lights went dark. The AC stopped blowing. Even the clock froze, stuck at 1:52 p.m. Silence. Complete silence. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic sounds. Just the tick-tick-tick of the cooling engine and my own ragged breathing. I sat there for a long moment, hands still on the wheel, trying to process what had just happened. Mechanical failure? Fuel line problem? But the truck had been running fine all morning. This didn't make sense. I grabbed the CB radio. "Breaker 19, this is Ironside. I'm stuck on County Road 1215, maybe 10 miles south of I-20. Engine died. Anybody out there? Static. Not the rhythmic, breathing static from the stories I'd heard other drivers tell, but regular, empty static. Dispatch, this is Unit 7-4. Come in, dispatch. Nothing. I tried my phone. No signal, no emergency calls available. The screen showed the time, 1:52 p.m., but the numbers weren't advancing. The clock had stopped. Okay, I said, forcing my voice to stay calm. Okay, this is fine. This is fixable. I climbed out of the cab. The heat hit me like a physical blow. Had to be over 100 degrees, maybe more. The air was thick, heavy, hard to breathe. And that smell, metallic, ancient, like rust and decay mixed together. The tire tracks on the road were right in front of me now. Up close, they looked wrong. Too dark, too glossy. I crouched down, touched one with my finger. The substance came away sticky, warm. It wasn't rubber, it was something else, something organic. I jerked my hand back, wiping it on my jeans. My heart was racing now, my instincts screaming at me that something was very, very wrong with this place. The dust storm on the horizon hadn't moved. It still sat there, waiting, like it had all the time in the world. I walked around to the front of the truck, popped the hood. The engine looked normal, hot, but normal. No obvious leaks, no disconnected wires. I wasn't a mechanic, but I knew enough to recognize when something was catastrophically wrong. And this engine looked fine. So why wouldn't it start? I climbed back into the cab, turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Like the battery was completely dead, even though the dashboard had been lit up just 5 minutes ago. Come on, I pleaded, turning the key again. Come on, baby, don't do this. Nothing. I sat back, mind racing. Options, I could walk back the way I came, try to reach I-20 on foot. But that was over 40 miles in this heat. I'd be dead from dehydration before I made it halfway. I could wait here, hope another truck came by. But I hadn't seen a single vehicle since taking that exit, and those abandoned trucks suggested nobody came this way anymore. Or I could walk toward the dust storm, toward wherever this road supposedly led. Maybe there was help on the other side. Maybe the GPS was still guiding me to somewhere real, somewhere with people and phone service and working vehicles. It was a stupid idea. Every instinct told me it was a stupid idea, but it was the only idea I had. I grabbed my phone, even though it was useless. Grabbed a bottle of water from behind the seat. Warm, but wet. Grabbed my knife, a flashlight, and a road flare. Locked the cab. And started walking toward the storm. The road stretched ahead, perfectly straight, leading directly into that wall of dust. My footsteps echoed strangely like I was walking in an enclosed space instead of open desert. The sun was getting lower, the shadows longer, even though, according to my frozen clock, it was still 1:52 in the afternoon. After 10 minutes, I looked back. My truck was maybe a quarter mile behind me, small but still visible, and beyond it, barely visible in the heat shimmer, were those other abandoned trucks. More of them now. I counted 7, 8, maybe 9. Had they always been there? Or were they appearing as I walked? I turned forward again, forcing myself to focus on the storm ahead. It was closer now. I could see details in the churning dust, patterns and currents, darker shapes moving inside. And at the base, where the storm met the road, there was something else. Lights. Red lights, pulsing in rhythm, like headlights. Like dozens of headlights all pointed in my direction. I stopped walking. The lights grew brighter. And then, slowly, they started to move. Not toward me, but sideways, spreading out across the width of the storm. They formed a line, a perimeter. like they were surrounding something, or guarding it. "Hell no," I whispered. I turned to head back to my truck, and found the road behind me was gone. Not blocked, not obscured. Gone. The asphalt simply ended about 50 feet behind me, replaced by bare dirt and rocks. My truck was nowhere to be seen. The abandoned vehicles had vanished. It was like the road had never existed. I spun around. The road ahead was still there, still leading toward the storm, toward those red lights. "This isn't real," I said out loud. "This is heat stroke. This is dehydration. This isn't real." But it felt real. The ground under my feet, the sun on my skin, the taste of metal in my mouth, all of it felt real. I had two choices: stand here and wait to die, or walk forward into whatever that storm was hiding. I chose to walk. Every step felt like walking through water. The air got thicker, heavier, harder to push through. The heat became oppressive, crushing. Sweat poured down my face, stinging my eyes. My legs felt like lead. But I kept walking. The storm was maybe a mile away now, close enough that I could hear it. Not wind, but that deep humming sound I'd heard stories about. The sound that vibrated in your chest and made your teeth ache. The sound of something vast and old and patient. The red lights were still there, still pulsing. And now I could see shapes behind them. Vehicles, trucks, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all parked in formation inside the storm. All identical in shape, all covered in that red dust. The phantom freight route. That's what this was. The stories other drivers told in truck stops. The legends they whispered about over coffee, a route that didn't exist on any map, that only appeared when it wanted to, that collected trucks and drivers and added them to its endless convoy. I'd thought it was bullshit. Campfire stories for bored truckers. I was wrong. The storm was close enough now that I could feel the first tendrils of dust reaching out, touching my skin. Cold, despite the heat. Wrong. And in the dust, I could see faces. Human faces, pressed against the inside of the storm like they were trapped behind glass. They were screaming, but no sound came out. Just their mouths open, eyes wide with terror, hands clawing at nothing. I recognized one of them. It was me. My own face, twisted in fear, trapped in that wall of dust. But that was impossible. I was here, standing on the road, not in the storm. The ground beneath me shifted. I looked down. The asphalt was dissolving, turning to dust, flowing toward the storm like water down a drain, and my feet were going with it. I tried to run, but the road was falling apart faster than I could move. The dust swirled around my ankles, my knees, pulling me toward that wall of churning red death. "No!" I screamed. "No! Let me go!" But the dust didn't listen. It never listened. The last thing I saw before the storm swallowed me was my truck, suddenly appearing in the distance. It was driving, rolling down the road with no one behind the wheel, following those dark tire tracks toward the storm. Toward me. Toward the phantom freight route, where trucks drive forever and drivers never leave. And then everything went red. I woke up behind the wheel. That's the first thing I remember, opening my eyes and seeing my hands on the steering wheel. The dashboard lit up, the road stretching ahead through the windshield. Like I'd just dozed off for a second and snapped back awake. But something was wrong. Everything felt wrong. The light was different. Not daylight, not quite night. A dim, reddish glow that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Like dusk, but permanent. Frozen. I looked at the dashboard clock. It was stuck at 1:52 p.m., same as before. But that couldn't be right. I'd been walking, the storm had hit me, I'd been pulled into... Memory came flooding back. The dust, the red lights, The faces trapped in the storm, my own face screaming. I lurched in my seat, checking myself frantically. Arms, legs, chest, everything seemed intact. No injuries, no dust on my clothes, no sign that I'd been outside at all. It was like I'd never left the truck. But I had left the truck. I'd locked the door, walked toward the storm, felt the road disappear beneath me. So how was I back here? I looked out the windshield. The road ahead was straight and flat, stretching to infinity. On either side, that reddish twilight showed nothing. No landmarks, no scrub brush, no rocks. Just empty space fading into darkness. And ahead, in the distance, I could see trucks, dozens of them, hundreds maybe. All semi-trucks, all different makes and models, all driving in a perfect line. They were spaced evenly, maybe 50 yards apart, moving at exactly the same speed. The headlights created a chain of light stretching ahead as far as I could see. A convoy, a phantom freight convoy. I was part of it. My hands tightened on the wheel. I tried to turn it, to pull off onto the shoulder, if there even was a shoulder. The wheel wouldn't budge. It was locked in place, keeping the truck perfectly straight, perfectly aligned with the convoy. I tried the brakes. My foot went to the floor, but the truck didn't slow. Still moving at exactly the same speed as every other truck in the line. Okay, I breathed. Okay, this is bad. This is really bad. I grabbed for the door handle. Locked. I tried the unlock button, nothing. Tried the window switch. Nothing. The door handle, the lock, the windows, all dead. The cab had become a cage. The CB radio crackled to life. "Welcome to the route," a voice said. Not human, not quite. Flat, mechanical, but with undertones of something organic. "You're part of the convoy now." I grabbed the handset. "Who is this? Where am I?" "The Phantom Freight Route. You followed the GPS, followed the tracks, followed the path. Now you're here, now you drive." "I don't want to drive, I want to go home, I want to—" "Everyone wants to go home," the voice interrupted. "But nobody leaves the route. Nobody ever leaves." The radio went silent, except for that low hum I'd heard before. The sound that made my chest ache. I looked in my mirrors. Behind me, another truck followed at the exact same distance, and behind that, another, and another. The convoy stretched back as far as I could see, an endless chain of vehicles, all moving in perfect synchronization. This couldn't be real. This had to be a hallucination, a dream, something my mind had conjured in the heat. But it felt real. The seat beneath me, the wheel under my hands, the rumble of the engine, all of it felt real. I tried the key. Maybe if I could turn off the engine, break whatever spell was keeping me here. The key wouldn't turn. It was like it had been welded in place. Fuck! I slammed my palm against the dashboard. Fuck, fuck, fuck! The radio crackled again. Anger is common, denial, fear, everyone goes through the stages. But eventually, you'll accept. They all accept. Accept what? That you're a driver. That's what you are. That's what you've always been. And now you get to drive forever. Isn't that what you wanted? No traffic, no deadlines, no dispatcher breathing down your neck, just you and the road and the endless horizon. "That's not what I wanted," I said through gritted teeth. "Isn't it? How many times did you think about just driving off, just disappearing into the empty desert and never coming back? How many times did you dream about a road that goes on forever?" I didn't answer, because the voice was right. I had thought about it. Late at night, alone on those empty highways, I'd fantasized about just vanishing, about driving until I ran out of road, or gas, or will. But not like this. Never like this. "Where does this road lead?" I asked. "Nowhere," Everywhere. It's a loop, Cole. The convoy drives in a circle, forever and ever. No beginning, no end. Just the route. How do you know my name? I know everyone's name. I've been collecting drivers for years, decades. You're number 347. 347. 347 drivers had ended up here, trapped in this nightmare convoy, driving forever. Who are you? I whispered. I'm the route. I'm the road that appears when you're lost. The GPS that leads you astray. The voice that tells you to keep going. I'm the phantom freight route, and I'm always looking for new drivers. The truck ahead of me started to slow. Not much, just a few miles per hour, and my truck slowed to match, maintaining that perfect distance. Then the truck ahead sped up again, and so did mine. We were connected, all of us, every truck in the convoy moving as one organism, controlled by the route itself. I looked at the truck ahead more carefully. It was a Peterbilt, older model, covered in dust. The trailer was unmarked, and in the driver's side mirror I could see a face, pale, gaunt, eyes wide and staring, not looking around, not moving, just staring straight ahead with an expression of absolute resignation. A driver who'd accepted, who'd given up fighting. How long have they been here? I asked. Some for days, some for years. Time doesn't work the same on the route. It stretches, compresses, loops back on itself. You could be here for an hour or a century. You'll never know. My hands were shaking. There has to be a way out. There's always a way out. Is there? You're in a moving truck. The doors won't open. The road has no exits. The convoy never stops. Where exactly do you think you can go? I didn't have an answer. The radio continued. Your truck will never run out of fuel. You'll never need to eat or sleep. You won't age, won't die. You'll just drive forever. Until the road decides it doesn't need you anymore. And then what? Then you become part of the road, part of the asphalt, the dust, the wind. You become the route itself. And maybe, if you're lucky, you'll get to whisper to the next driver who takes the wrong turn. I closed my eyes, trying to think. There had to be something I was missing. Some way to break free, to disrupt the route's control over my truck. The GPS. The route had used the GPS to lure me here. Maybe I could use it to get out. I looked at the GPS screen. It showed my position as a blue dot on a road that formed a perfect circle. No other roads, no exits, no landmarks. Just the circle, and my dot moving slowly along it. I tried to touch the screen, to zoom out, to see if there was anything beyond this loop. The screen didn't respond, like it had been frozen in place, but then I noticed something. In the corner of the screen, barely visible, was a small icon. It looked like a settings gear. I pressed it. The screen flickered. For just a second, the image changed. Instead of the circular road, I saw something else. A network of roads, branching and connecting, forming a pattern that looked almost like a nervous system, or a spider's web. And at the center of the web, pulsing with red light, was a single point. The heart of the route. Then the screen went back to normal, showing just the circle. But I'd seen it. There was more to the route than this endless convoy. There was a structure, a center, a place where it was strongest. And maybe, just maybe, that was where I needed to go to escape. Interesting, the voice on the radio said. You're smarter than most. Most drivers just accept their fate. But you're still trying to find a way out. Damn right I am. It won't work. The center of the route is forbidden, protected. Nobody gets there. Nobody even tries anymore. Why not? Because everyone who tried disappeared. Not just onto the route, but gone completely. Erased. like they never existed. A chill ran down my spine, but I didn't have any other options. Stay in the convoy forever, or try to reach the center and maybe, possibly find a way to shut this whole thing down. "How do I get there?" I asked. The radio went silent. "How do I get to the center?" Still silence. "Answer me!" But the radio stayed quiet. The voice, whatever it was, had decided not to help. I was on my own. I looked at the convoy ahead. Hundreds of trucks, all trapped, all driving. And somewhere in that line, somewhere ahead, was the way to the center. I had to find it. The truck's steering wheel was still locked, but I tested it anyway, pushed against it, trying to force it to turn. It didn't budge. The route had complete control, but maybe I could disrupt that control. I looked at the dashboard. All the indicators were normal, fuel full, engine temperature normal, all systems functioning. But these readings didn't mean anything. The truck wasn't really running on fuel or coolant. It was running on whatever power the route was feeding it. So, what would happen if I disrupted that power? I reached under the dashboard, felt for the fuse box. Found it, popped it open. Inside were dozens of fuses, each one labeled headlights, radio, instrument panel, ignition, ignition. I grabbed the fuse and yanked it out. The engine died instantly. The dashboard went dark. The truck started to coast, losing speed. And for the first time since waking up in this nightmare, I felt the steering wheel loosen in my hands. Yes! I grabbed the wheel and turned it hard to the right. The truck responded. Slowly, sluggishly, but it responded. The vehicle started to drift toward what I hoped was the shoulder. The radio exploded with sound. Not words, but a scream. High, piercing, inhuman. The sound of the route realizing what I was doing. "You can't leave," the voice shrieked. "You're part of the convoy. You belong to the route." "Fuck the route," I snarled, fighting the wheel. The truck ahead started to slow, as if trying to block me. The truck behind started to speed up, trying to rear-end me. But my truck was already off the main road, rolling onto rough ground that shouldn't exist. The reddish twilight brightened. I could see details now. Scattered rocks, patches of dead grass, a landscape that looked almost real. And ahead, maybe half a mile out, was a structure, a building. Concrete, squat, with a single door and no windows. It sat alone in the emptiness, and from its roof rose an antenna, tall, reaching up into that strange red sky, pulsing with the same light I'd seen on the GPS. The center, it had to be. My truck was slowing, 20 miles an hour. 15, 10, coasting to a stop maybe 100 yards from the building. I tried to restart the engine. Nothing. I'd pulled the ignition fuse, and apparently the route wasn't going to help me anymore. Fine. I'd walk. I tried the door handle. Still locked. I tried the window. Still frozen. "You can't reach it," the voice on the radio said. Quieter now, almost sad. "The center is protected. You'll die out there before you get close. Then I'll die trying." I grabbed my knife, the one I'd taken from the truck when I first set out walking, flipped it open, and drove the blade into the window. The glass cracked, spiderwebbing out from the impact point. I hit it again. On the fourth strike, the window shattered, spraying safety glass across the cab. Alarm bells went off so loud I had to cover my ears. But the window was open. I climbed through, cutting my hands on the remaining glass, and dropped to the ground. The air outside was cold. Not cold like winter, but cold like death. It burned my lungs with every breath. The ground was rough, covered in that same dark substance I'd seen on the road. Sticky. Organic. I didn't care. I started running toward the building. Behind me, I heard engines revving. The convoy trucks were leaving the road, all of them coming after me. Dozens of vehicles, all driven by the route's will, all trying to stop me from reaching the center. I ran faster. The building was closer now. I could see details, rust on the door, cracks in the concrete, strange symbols carved into the walls. The antenna on top pulsed faster, like a heartbeat, like it knew I was coming. 50 yards, 30, 20. The first truck caught up, its grill looming in my peripheral vision. I dove to the side, rolling, feeling the wind of its passage as it roared past. It didn't hit me, but it was close. Too close. More trucks were coming. The whole convoy, converging on my position. I got to my feet and sprinted the last 15 yards. The door was right there, metal and rust and salvation. I grabbed the handle. It was locked. No! I pounded on the door. Open! God damn it, open! A truck was bearing down on me, maybe 5 seconds away from impact. I stepped back and kicked the door with everything I had. Pain shot through my leg, but the door didn't budge. 3 seconds. I grabbed the knife from my pocket, jammed it into the gap between door and frame, tried to pry it open. 2 seconds. The blade snapped, but something inside the door clicked. 1 second. I threw myself against the door. It flew open and I tumbled inside just as the truck crashed into the building. The impact shook the walls, sent dust raining from the ceiling, but the structure held. I lay on the floor, gasping, my hands bleeding, my body screaming with pain. But I was inside. I'd reached the center, and now I just had to figure out what the hell to do. The inside of the building was nothing like I expected. I'd imagined something high-tech, computers, servers, some kind of control center for the route. Instead, I found myself in a single room, maybe 20 feet square, with concrete walls and a dirt floor. And in the center of the room, growing out of the ground like a tree, was the antenna. Except it wasn't an antenna. Not really. It was organic. Twisted metal and flesh and something else. Something that pulsed with that same red light. The branches of the antenna reached up through a hole in the ceiling, extending into the sky above. And at its base, wrapped around the trunk, were cables. Hundreds of them spreading across the floor like roots, disappearing into the walls. This was the heart of the Phantom Freight route, the thing that created it, sustained it, pulled drivers in and kept them trapped forever. And it was alive. You shouldn't be here. I spun around. Standing in the doorway was a man, or what used to be a man. He was pale, translucent almost, like a ghost. His clothes were ancient, denim and flannel, work boots that looked like they'd walked 1,000,000 miles, and his eyes were empty, hollow pits that reflected that red light. "Who are you?" I managed to ask. I was the first driver, the one who found this road before it was the route, before it woke up and learned to hunger. His voice was distant, echoing, like it was coming from very far away. My truck broke down out here back in 1987. I waited for help. Help never came. I died out here. And when I died, something took my body, took my truck, used them to create this. He gestured at the antenna thing. It started small, just my truck, driving in circles, forever. Then another driver broke down, then another. Each one added to the convoy, each one feeding the route, making it stronger. Now there are hundreds, and it will keep growing until every road in Texas is part of it, until every driver is trapped. How do I stop it? The ghost driver tilted his head. Stop it? You can't stop it. It's too big now, too powerful. It's the road itself. Bullshit. Everything has a weak point. Everything can be broken. He studied me for a long moment. Then he smiled, a sad, broken smile. You remind me of myself. Before I accepted, before I became part of it. I'll never accept. I'll never be part of this. That's what they all say. He pointed at the antenna. But if you really want to try, that's what powers the route. That's what keeps the convoy moving. Destroy it, and maybe, the route will collapse. How do I destroy it? Fire. The one thing the route fears. It can't survive fire, but... He trailed off. But what? But the antenna is connected to all the trucks, to all the drivers. Destroy it, and you destroy them too. 347 drivers, all of them erased. Gone. Like they never existed. My blood ran cold. All of them? All of them, including you. Because you're part of the convoy now. You're connected. Destroy the route, and you destroy yourself. I looked at the antenna thing, at the pulsing red light, at the cables spreading like disease through the building. I thought about those drivers, trapped in their trucks, driving forever. I thought about my daughter, my family, my life outside this nightmare. And I made my choice. Where can I find fire? The ghost driver's smile widened. You're sure? I'm sure. He pointed to the corner of the room. There, half buried in the dirt floor, was a red metal can. A gas can. Fuel from the first truck, the original. It's been here since the beginning. I walked over and picked it up. It was heavy, full. I unscrewed the cap and the smell of gasoline filled the room. Pour it on the base, the ghost driver said, where the cables come out. That's where it's weakest. I moved toward the antenna, my hands shaking. This was it. This was how I got out. Even if it meant I'd go with it, better to be erased than to drive forever. I started pouring the gasoline. It spread across the dirt, soaking into the cables, darkening the metal and flesh of the antenna. The red light flickered, dimmed slightly. The route knew what I was doing. Outside, the trucks were ramming the building, over and over, trying to break through, trying to stop me. The walls shook with each impact. Cracks appeared in the concrete. Dust rained from the ceiling. You need to hurry, the ghost driver said. They'll break through soon. I emptied the gas can. The whole base of the antenna was soaked. I just needed something to light it. Here, the ghost driver held out his hand. In his palm was a book of matches. Old, faded, but still functional. I took them. Why are you helping me? Because I'm tired, so very tired, and maybe, if you destroy the route, I can finally rest. I nodded, struck a match. The flame flared bright in the dim room. Do it, the ghost driver whispered. I dropped the match. The gasoline ignited with a whoosh. Flames raced across the floor, up the cables, engulfing the base of the antenna. The red light flared, blazed, turned orange, and then white hot. The flesh metal screamed, an actual scream, high and terrible and full of rage. The building shook. The walls cracked. Outside, the trucks went silent. And then, like a switch being flipped, everything stopped. The flames vanished. The antenna crumbled, turning to dust and ash. The cables withered, dried up, dissolved. The red light went out completely, leaving only darkness. I stood there gasping, waiting for the erasure, waiting to disappear. But I didn't disappear. I was still here, still solid, still real. The ghost driver was gone. The building was empty except for the pile of ash where the antenna had been. And outside, through the broken door, I could see dawn breaking. Real dawn. Normal dawn. The reddish twilight was gone, replaced by the soft blue-gray of early morning. I walked to the door, looked outside. The trucks were still there. All of them. But they were empty now, their engines silent. The drivers, all 347 of them, were standing beside their vehicles, looking around in confusion and wonder. They were free. We were all free. One of them, an older man with a weathered face, looked at me. What happened? Where are we? I don't know, I said honestly. But I think we can leave now. He nodded slowly, then he smiled. Thank you. Other drivers were approaching now, all of them asking questions, all of them trying to understand. I didn't have answers. All I knew was that the route was gone. The nightmare was over. I walked back to my truck. It was still there, window broken, engine dead. But when I turned the key, it started right up. All the systems came back online. The GPS showed my position on I-20, about 60 miles east of where I'd taken that exit. How I'd gotten back to I-20, I had no idea. But I wasn't going to question it. I put the truck in gear and drove. The sun rose higher. The landscape looked normal again. Scrub brush and mesquite trees and red dirt. Other trucks were starting their engines too, joining me on the highway. We formed a convoy of sorts, but this one was different. This one was real. Within an hour, I saw a sign for a truck stop. I pulled in, as did many of the other drivers. We gathered in the parking lot, comparing stories, trying to make sense of what had happened. Nobody had a complete picture. We all remembered parts of it. The wrong turn, the abandoned trucks, the red twilight, the endless convoy. But the details were already fading, like a dream upon waking. Maybe that was for the best. I called dispatch, told them I'd had mechanical trouble and lost my load. They weren't happy, but they didn't fire me. Said to come back to the yard and we'd sort it out. I called my daughter, told her I'd be home in time for her birthday. And then I just sat in my truck, drinking coffee, watching the sun climb higher, feeling the heat of a normal Texas day. It was over. The phantom freight route was gone, but I knew I'd never take another GPS route without double-checking the map first. 3 months passed. I went back to work, ran my usual routes, tried to forget about the phantom freight route. The company wrote off the lost load, filed an insurance claim. Nobody asked too many questions. The other drivers who'd been trapped? I tried to find them, looked them up online, called trucking companies, even posted on forums. But I couldn't track down a single one. It was like they'd vanished. Or like they'd never existed in the first place. Sometimes I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. If it had been heat stroke, or a bad dream, or just the isolation getting to me. But I knew better. The broken window in my truck was real. The scars on my hands from the glass were real. It had happened, all of it. I started taking different routes after that. Avoided I-20 where I could, stuck to main highways, never took shortcuts even when the GPS suggested them. I became that driver, the paranoid one, the one who didn't trust technology, who still used paper maps. My dispatcher thought I'd lost my edge. My ex-wife thought I was having a breakdown. My daughter was just happy I was home more often. And for 3 months everything was fine. Until last Tuesday, I was hauling construction equipment from Lubbock to San Antonio, taking US 87 south. It was a clear day, traffic was light, everything was normal. I was listening to the radio, sipping coffee, thinking about stopping for lunch. That's when I saw the sign. It was one of those green highway signs, the kind that indicate upcoming exits. But this one was different. Instead of a town name or route number, it just said, Freight Route 1215, next exit. My blood turned to ice. I looked at the road ahead. There was an exit coming up, but according to my map, it shouldn't be there. US 87 was a straight shot through this area. No major exits for another 30 miles. But there it was. Exit ramp curving off to the left, freshly paved, with bright yellow lines. I passed it without slowing down. Kept my eyes straight ahead, hands tight on the wheel, heart hammering. In my rearview mirror, I watched the exit recede. But just before it disappeared from view, I saw something that made my stomach drop. There was a truck on that exit, an old semi, covered in red dust, rolling slowly down the ramp. And in the driver's side mirror, I caught a glimpse of a face. It was the ghost driver, the first one, the man who'd helped me destroy the route's heart. He was smiling. I grabbed my CB radio. Breaker 19, anybody on US 87 southbound, did you just see that exit? Did you see that truck? Static. Then a voice. What exit, driver? US 87 is clear all the way to Junction. No exits for miles. But I just saw, you all right, friend? Maybe you should pull over, get some rest. I looked in my mirror again. The exit was gone, like it had never been there. But the sign was still visible, getting smaller in the distance. Freight route 1215, next exit. I drove the rest of the way to San Antonio without stopping. Delivered my load. Headed home. That night, I did some research. Looked up the Phantom Freight route, searched for any mention of it online. Found the same stories I'd read before. Legends, urban myths, campfire tales. But I also found something new. A post from just 2 weeks ago on a trucking forum I frequented. Took a wrong turn on I-20. GPS led me to a county road. Said it was a freight route. Road looked new, but there were abandoned trucks everywhere. Got spooked and turned around. Anybody else ever see this? Route 1215, I think it was called. The post had 3 replies, all saying the same thing. It's just a legend, you probably misread a sign. But I knew better, the route wasn't destroyed. It was just sleeping, healing, and eventually, it would wake up again. It would start appearing on GPS units, luring in drivers, building its convoy, and next time, there might not be anyone brave or crazy enough to destroy it. I thought about posting a warning, telling people about what I'd seen, what I'd experienced, how to avoid the route if it appeared. But who would believe me? I barely believed it myself some days. So instead, I'm writing this, all of it. Everything that happened, from the moment I took that exit to the moment I burned the route's heart. If you're a driver, if you haul freight across Texas, pay attention. Watch for signs that don't match your map. Watch for GPS routes that seem too convenient, too perfect. Watch for abandoned trucks and tire tracks that look wrong. And if you ever see a sign for Freight Route 1215, don't take it. Don't even slow down. Just keep driving, keep your eyes forward, and pray that the route hasn't chosen you, because it's still out there, still waiting, still hungry. And one day it's going to wake up. I saw the exit again this morning. Different highway this time, I-10 west of Fort Stockton. Same sign. Freight route 1215, next exit. I didn't take it, but in my mirror I saw 3 other trucks take the exit. Watch them disappear down that ramp into whatever twisted dimension the route creates. They're part of the convoy now, driving forever, or until someone else is brave enough to destroy the route's heart. And the worst part? I know it's only a matter of time before I see that exit again. Before the route decides it wants me back. Before the GPS tells me to turn, and something deep in my mind, some part of me that's still connected to that place, makes me obey. I destroyed the route once, but I don't think I can do it again. So I drive. I keep driving. I watch for signs and I pray I'm never tired enough, distracted enough, desperate enough to take that turn again. But the route is patient. It's been waiting for decades. It can wait decades more. And eventually, everyone takes the wrong turn. Even me, especially me. Last night, I dreamed I was back in the convoy, back in that reddish twilight, driving in perfect formation with hundreds of other trucks. The steering wheel locked, the doors sealed, the GPS showing that endless circle. And in the dream, I was smiling. Because in the dream, I'd finally accepted it. Finally stopped fighting. Finally realized that this was where I belonged. On the road. Forever. I woke up in a cold sweat, hands cramped from gripping the bedsheets like they were a steering wheel. It was just a dream, just a nightmare. Nothing more. But when I went out to my truck this morning, I found red dust on the driver's seat. Dust that shouldn't be there. Dust from a road that doesn't exist. Or maybe it does exist. Maybe it's always existed. Maybe every highway has a ghost, a phantom route that runs alongside the real one, waiting for drivers to stray just a little bit off course. And maybe I never really escaped. Maybe I'm still in the convoy, still driving, and everything since. The rescue, the return home, these past 3 months. Maybe it's all just a dream, a hallucination that the route is showing me while I drive forever in that twilight world. Maybe I'm writing this from inside the route, and you're reading it from outside, and the only thing separating us is the choice to turn or keep going straight. I don't know anymore. All I know is that I'm driving to Amarillo tomorrow. Big load, tight deadline. The route takes me along I-20, right through that section where I first saw the exit. Right past mile marker 157. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure the route will leave me alone. I'm sure I'll make the delivery and come home and everything will be normal. I'm sure, but just in case, if you're reading this and I don't post again, and nobody can find me or my truck, you'll know where I went. You'll know I took the exit. You'll know the phantom freight route finally collected what it was owed. And maybe, if you're driving through West Texas late at night and you see a sign for freight route 1215, you'll think of me. You'll think of this story, and you'll keep driving straight, for both our sakes. The route is waiting, it's always waiting, and one way or another, it always gets its drivers. My name is Dalton Hayes, and I've been running freight across the Southwest for 16 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of strange things. Ghost lights in the desert, mirages that looked too real, weather that moved in ways it shouldn't. But I always had an explanation. Heat distortion, fatigue, tricks of the light. Until I found the motel. It was July. Peak summer in West Texas, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and dance, that turns the highway into a river of black glass. I was hauling refrigerated goods from El Paso to Lubbock, taking Route 62 because the interstate was backed up with construction. Route 62 is old highway, 2 lanes of faded asphalt that cuts through some of the emptiest country in Texas. No towns, no gas stations, just mile after mile of scrubland and sky. I'd driven it before, many times. I knew every curve, every rise, every lonely stretch where the cell signal dropped to nothing. But that day, something was different. The dust was everywhere. It started around noon. I noticed it first as a haze on the horizon, nothing unusual for West Texas in July. But within an hour, the haze had thickened into something more substantial. Not quite a storm, but close. The sky took on that copper-orange tint that means dust in the air, lots of it. Visibility dropped from miles to maybe half a mile, then less. I should have pulled over, should have waited it out at one of the few rest areas along the route. But I was behind schedule, and the load was time-sensitive. The refrigeration unit on my trailer had been acting up all morning, running hot, cycling on and off at random intervals. If I didn't get to Lubbock soon, the whole load would spoil. So I kept driving. The CB radio was quiet. Usually on Route 62, you'd hear at least a few truckers chatting, but today there was nothing, just that low static hiss that made my teeth ache if I listened too long. I tried calling out a few times. Breaker 19, this is Mustang, anybody out on Route 62? But got no response. The dust kept getting thicker. By 2 o'clock, I had my headlights on full, and they barely penetrated 20 feet. The wipers were running constantly, smearing red-brown grit across the windshield. I could taste the dust in the cab, feel it coating my throat, even with the windows closed and the air recirculation on. That's when the temperature gauge on my refrigeration unit spiked into the red. "Shit," I muttered, glancing at the trailer monitor. The unit was overheating. If I didn't shut it down and let it cool, the compressor would burn out. And if the compressor went, so did my whole load. 10,000 pounds of frozen food, worth more than my truck. I needed to stop, find some shade, let the unit rest, maybe diagnose what was wrong. But out here, there was no shade, no trees, no buildings, nothing but flat desert stretching in all directions. Then, through the dust, I saw it. A sign, faded blue paint on weathered wood, barely visible through the orange haze. It read, "Crossroads Motel, vacancy, 2 miles." A motel, out here in the middle of nowhere. I'd driven Route 62 dozens of times and never seen any motel, but the sign looked real enough, and right now I needed any kind of shelter I could find. I kept driving, watching the odometer. 1 mile, 1.5. At exactly 2 miles, the motel appeared out of the dust like a ghost materializing. It was a classic roadside motor lodge. Single story, maybe 15 rooms arranged in an L shape around a parking lot. The building was adobe style, or maybe just concrete painted to look like adobe. Hard to tell through the dust. The roof was flat, covered in gravel with an old neon sign mounted on top. The sign wasn't lit, but I could make out the letters. Crossroads Motel. The parking lot was empty. No other vehicles, no signs of life. The office had a dim light glowing in the window, but that was it. I pulled in, positioning the trailer so it blocked as much wind as possible. The dust was so thick now it was like driving through smoke. I could barely see the motel entrance, maybe 30 feet away. I shut off the engine and killed the refrigeration unit. Silence except for the wind. It wasn't howling, not yet, but it had a low, resonant quality that made my skin crawl, like someone blowing across the mouth of a bottle, but deeper. Much deeper. I sat in the cab for a moment, just breathing, trying to decide what to do. The smart move would be to wait here in the truck until the dust cleared, but the heat was already building. Without the AC, the cab would be an oven in minutes, and I needed to check that refrigeration unit, maybe find some water to help cool it down. The motel was right there. Probably abandoned, but maybe it had water. Maybe even electricity. It was worth checking. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed out. The heat hit me first. Dry, crushing heat that sucked the moisture from my lungs, then the dust. It coated everything instantly, my skin, my clothes, my hair. I could feel the grit between my teeth. The wind pushed against me, not hard enough to knock me over, but enough to make walking difficult. I made my way to the motel office. The door was unlocked, old wood that swung open with a creak that the wind almost drowned out. Inside, the air was cooler. Not much, but enough to notice. And cleaner. The dust hadn't penetrated here yet. The office was small, a counter with an old cash register. A key rack behind it, most of the hooks empty. A couple of chairs, a water cooler in the corner, and that dim light I'd seen from outside. A single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, barely brighter than a candle. "Hello?" I called out. "Anybody here?" My voice echoed strangely, like the room was bigger than it looked. No response. I walked to the counter. There was a guest register lying open, the kind with the old-style carbon copy paper. I looked at the last entry. It was dated June 17th, 1993, nearly 30 years ago. The signature was barely legible, but I could make out a name. R. Dalton Midland. A chill ran down my spine. My name was Dalton. Dalton Hayes. What were the odds that the last person to sign this register shared my first name? I told myself it was a coincidence. A common enough name, nothing to worry about. But my hands were shaking as I set the register down. The water cooler in the corner had a full bottle. I tested the tap. Water came out, cold and clear. I drank deeply, then filled a couple of bottles I'd brought from the truck. If nothing else, this place had water. That was something. Behind the counter, I found a door marked Private Manager. It was locked, but through the crack I could see a light on inside. Not bright, just a faint glow, like a nightlight. "Hello?" I called again. "I'm a driver, broke down outside, just need to wait out the dust. Is anybody here?" No response. I tried the door handle again. Still locked. Fine. I'd wait in one of the rooms instead. The key rack had maybe 5 keys still hanging. I took one at random, room 7, and headed back outside. The dust had gotten worse, much worse. Visibility was down to maybe 10 feet. The wind had picked up too, that low, resonant hum turning into something closer to a moan. The motel sign creaked overhead, swaying on its mounting despite the lack of wind strong enough to move it. I found room 7 and unlocked the door. It swung open with that same creaking sound as the office door. Inside was darkness. I flipped the light switch. Nothing happened. I tried it again, still nothing. I used my flashlight instead. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a standard motel room. Double bed, nightstand, small TV on a dresser, bathroom door to the left. Everything was dated, 70s or 80s style, but it was clean. No dust, no dirt, no signs of abandonment. That should have comforted me. Instead, it made my unease worse. This place had been closed for 30 years. The register proved that. So, why was it clean? Why was there water in the cooler? Why did it feel like someone had just been here? I closed the door behind me and set my flashlight on the nightstand. The beam pointed at the ceiling, creating a pool of dim light. I sat on the bed. The mattress was firm, the sheets crisp, like they'd been changed recently. Outside, the wind continued its strange humming, but in here, it was quiet. Almost too quiet. I couldn't even hear my own breathing properly. The sound seemed muffled, absorbed by the walls. I checked my phone. No signal, as expected. The time showed 3:17 p.m. I'd wait an hour or two for the dust to clear, then get back on the road. Simple. I lay back on the bed, just for a moment, just to rest my eyes. The heat and the stress of driving through the dust had worn me out. A short rest, then I'd check the refrigeration unit. Just a short rest. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, it was dark. Not evening dark, not night dark, complete darkness. The kind of black you only find deep underground or in places where light has never existed. My flashlight was gone. I reached for where I'd set it on the nightstand, but my hand found only empty air. I sat up quickly, heart suddenly pounding. "What the hell?" I whispered. I fumbled for my phone, found it in my pocket. The screen was black. Dead. But it had been fully charged when I lay down. How long had I been asleep? I stood up, moving carefully in the darkness. My hands found the wall, then the door. I tried the handle. It turned, but the door wouldn't open. Like something was blocking it from outside, or like the door had been sealed. "Hey!" I shouted. "Is someone out there? The door's stuck." My voice didn't echo this time. It just stopped, absorbed by that same muffling effect I'd noticed before, like shouting into a pillow. I felt my way along the wall to where the window should be, found the curtains, pulled them aside. Behind them was just wall, solid wall, No window, no glass. Just concrete or adobe or whatever this place was made of. That wasn't right. I'd seen a window when I came in. I was sure of it. Every motel room had windows. Panic started to rise in my chest. I forced it down, made myself breathe slowly. There had to be a rational explanation. Maybe I was in a different room than I thought. Maybe the darkness was just disorienting me. I moved back to the door, felt around the frame, found the light switch and flipped it. This time, something happened. A faint glow appeared, not from the ceiling fixture but from under the bathroom door. Dim red light like a darkroom lamp. I walked to the bathroom and opened the door. The light was coming from the mirror. Not a reflection, but the mirror itself was glowing. Soft red luminescence, barely bright enough to see by. And in that red light, I could see my reflection. Except it wasn't moving right. When I raised my left hand, my reflection raised its right. Normal mirror behavior, but when I tilted my head, my reflection tilted the opposite direction. And when I stepped back, my reflection stepped forward. "No," I whispered. "No, that's not possible." My reflection smiled. I hadn't smiled. Then it spoke. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like it was inside my head. "Welcome to the crossroads." I stumbled backward, nearly falling. My reflection didn't move. It just stood there, smiling, watching me with eyes that weren't quite mine. They were too dark, too empty. "What is this place?" I managed to hiss. "A way station. A crossroads. A place between places. You stopped here, Dalton Hayes, and now you can't leave. That's bullshit. I'm walking out of here right now." I turned and strode to the door, grabbed the handle, pulled hard. It didn't budge. I pulled harder, throwing my weight into it. Nothing. The door might as well have been part of the wall. Behind me, my reflection laughed. Not my laugh. Something else. Something wrong. "The door's only open from outside," it said. "And there's no one out there to open them, just dust. Endless dust. This is where you are now. This is where you'll always be. Someone will come. My dispatcher will send someone when I don't check in." "Will they? Do you know how long you've been here, Dalton? Really know?" I looked at my phone again. Still dead. No way to tell the time. But I remembered lying down around 3:17 p.m. It couldn't have been more than a few hours. The sun must have set while I was asleep. "Look at your hands," my reflection said. I held them up in the red light. They looked normal, a little dirty from the dust, but normal. "Look closer." I did, and then I saw it. The dirt on my hands. It wasn't just dirt, it was red dust. And it wasn't on my skin, it was in my skin. Under the surface, spreading like veins, like roots. Moving, growing. I tried to brush it off, but it didn't come away, because it wasn't on my hands. It was part of my hands. Part of me. "What did you do to me?" I shouted at the mirror. "Nothing. The dust did this. The dust does it to everyone who stops here. It gets inside, becomes part of you. And once you're part of the dust, you're part of the crossroads. Forever." I backed away from the mirror until my shoulders hit the wall. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. It was a nightmare, a hallucination, something brought on by heat and exhaustion. "This isn't happening," I said. "I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up and I'll be in my truck and this will all be—" "You are awake, Dalton. This is real. The crossroads is real. And you're never leaving." The red light from the mirror grew brighter. In that light, I could see the bathroom more clearly now, and what I saw made my blood turn to ice. The walls were covered in handprints. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all made in red dust. Some were clear and distinct. Others were faded, smeared, like they'd been there for decades or centuries. And in the corner, barely visible, were words scratched into the wall. I moved closer, squinting to read them in the red light. There is no exit. There is only the crossroads. Below that, more words, names, dozens of names, carved into the plaster. I recognized some of them, common names, like Smith and Jones and Johnson, but then I saw one that made me stop breathing. Dalton Hayes, 2018. That was my name. And 2018 was this year. But I hadn't carved that, I'd just gotten here. I hadn't even been inside this bathroom until now. Do you understand? My reflection asked. Time doesn't work right here. Past, present, future, they all exist at once. You carved that name years ago, or years from now, or right now, it doesn't matter. You're already part of the crossroads. You've always been part of it. No, I said, shaking my head. No, I don't accept this, I don't. The mirror flashed. Bright red, searing, painful to look at. I shielded my eyes. When I lowered my hand, the bathroom was dark again. No red light, just blackness. But I could still hear my reflection's voice. Room 7 is yours now, Dalton. Forever. Enjoy your stay. Then, silence. I stood in the dark bathroom for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. Trying to convince myself it wasn't real. But the dust under my skin was real. The names on the wall were real. This place was real. I had to get out, had to find a way. I felt my way back to the main room, moving slowly in the complete darkness. My hands found the bed, the nightstand, the wall. I worked my way around the perimeter looking for any opening, any weakness. But there was nothing. The room was sealed. Perfect. Absolute. After what might have been hours, I sat on the bed again. My legs ached. My throat was dry. The water bottles I'd brought were gone. Either I'd never had them or they'd vanished while I slept. I was tired, so tired. The darkness was heavy, pressing down on me, making it hard to think. I lay down again, just for a moment, just to gather my strength before trying again. Just for a moment. When I opened my eyes, there was light, dim and orange, coming from under the door. And outside, I could hear something. Voices. Multiple voices, talking in low tones. I couldn't make out words, but there were definitely people out there. Other guests? The motel manager? Someone who could help me get out? I jumped up and pounded on the door. Hey, I'm in here. The door's stuck. Can you help me? The voices stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, deliberately, someone knocked back. 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. But it wasn't coming from outside the door. It was coming from the walls. All around me. Above, below, on every side. Dozens of knocks, all in perfect synchronization. And then the voices started again. But this time I could understand them. They were all saying the same thing, all in perfect unison. Room 7, room 7, room 7. My room number. The knocking continued, growing louder, faster, more insistent. The walls shook with each impact. Dust, that red dust, began to filter down from the ceiling, coating everything, coating me. I covered my ears and screamed. The knocking stopped. The voices stopped. Everything went silent again. Except for one sound. One voice, coming from the bathroom. My own voice. My reflection, speaking in the darkness. They've been waiting for you, Dalton, the others. The ones who checked in before you. They're lonely. They want you to join them. Join them where? In the walls. In the dust. In the crossroads itself. That's where everyone ends up eventually. Might as well accept it now. I will never accept this. My reflection laughed. That's what they all say, at first. The light under the door went out. Darkness returned, complete and total. And in that darkness I felt something. A presence. Multiple presences all around me, all watching, all waiting. The others. The ones in the walls. They wanted me to join them. And I realized, with horror, that part of me wanted to. Part of me was tired of fighting, tired of being alone in the dark, tired of everything. Part of me just wanted to give in, to become part of the dust and the walls and the crossroads, to stop being Dalton Hayes and become Room 7, forever. Time stopped meaning anything in the darkness. I would wake, if that's what you could call it, and lie there, listening to the silence. Then I'd sleep again, or what felt like sleep. The darkness never changed. The temperature never changed. Nothing changed except the dust that kept growing, spreading through my body like ink through water. I could feel it in my veins, in my bones, in my lungs. Every breath I took brought more of it inside, until I couldn't tell where I ended and the dust began. Sometimes I heard voices, the others calling to me through the walls. They didn't speak in words anymore, at least not words I could understand, just sounds. Whispers and murmurs and low moans that might have been language once, before the crossroads took it away. And sometimes, in the deepest parts of the darkness, I heard my truck outside, the engine turning over, trying to start, failing, trying again, like someone, or something, was attempting to leave. But the crossroads wouldn't let them, just like it wouldn't let me. I don't know how long I'd been in Room 7 when the lights came on. Not the room's lights, those had never worked, but light from outside, seeping under the door. Orange light, like late afternoon sun filtered through dust. And with the light came sound. Footsteps. Someone walking past my room. I was at the door in an instant, pounding on it, shouting, "Hey! Hey! Someone's in here! Help me! Please!" The footsteps stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, slowly, the door handle turned. The door opened, light flooded in, blinding after so long in darkness. I shielded my eyes, stumbling backward. When I could see again, I found myself looking at a man standing in the doorway. He was old, or looked old. It was hard to tell. His skin was weathered like leather, lined with deep creases. His eyes were sunken, hollow, and covering every visible inch of him was that red dust. It coated his clothes, his hair, his skin. When he moved, small clouds of it puffed into the air. "You're new," he said. His voice was rough, like he hadn't used it in a very long time. "Room 7, right?" I nodded, not trusting my own voice. "I'm Room 3. Been here." He trailed off, looking confused. "I don't remember how long. Long time. Before the dust, there was other guests. Now it's just us. Just the rooms." "How many?" I managed to ask. "How many others?" 14? No, 13. One of them became wall last week, or last year. Hard to tell. He looked at me more closely. "You still got some fight in you, I can see it. Dust ain't all the way through yet." I looked at my hands. The red veins had spread, covering most of my palms, working their way up my wrists. But there was still normal skin visible. Still parts of me that were me. "Is there a way out?" I asked. Room 3 laughed. It was a hollow sound, like wind through an empty building. "Sure. Same way you came in. Through the door." But the door was locked. It wouldn't open. "It opens now. It always opens eventually, once you're ready." "Ready for what?" "To see the rest of the crossroads. Your room was just the waiting area, the initiation. Now you get to see what's really here." He turned and walked away. I hesitated for only a second before following. Anything was better than staying in that dark room. The hallway outside was lit by that same orange light. It came from everywhere and nowhere, casting no shadows. The walls were adobe, or something like adobe, covered in that same red dust. Doors lined both sides, rooms 1 through 15. Some doors were open, revealing darkness inside. Others were closed, with that same faint light seeping underneath. Room 3 was ahead of me, walking slowly but steadily. I hurried to catch up. Where are we going? Everywhere. Nowhere. Does it matter? He didn't look back. You're part of the crossroads now, might as well see what you're part of. We passed room 5. The door was open. Inside, I could see a figure sitting on the bed. Just sitting, staring at the wall, completely motionless. Covered in dust so thick they looked like a statue carved from red stone. "Room 5 ain't moved in a while," room 3 said. "Probably won't move again. That's how it happens. You sit down one day and you just don't get up. Become part of the furniture, part of the room, part of the crossroads. That won't happen to me. That's what room 5 said." We reached the end of the hallway. It opened into the parking lot, or what should have been the parking lot. But everything was wrong. The sky was that same orange color, but too bright, too uniform. No sun visible, no clouds. Just solid orange from horizon to horizon. The ground was covered in red dust several inches deep, and my truck, my beautiful Freightliner, was still there, parked where I'd left it. But it was half buried in dust. The tires sunk deep, the whole thing tilted at an angle. And covering the truck, scratched into the dust on every surface, were words. The same words, over and over. "No exit, no exit, no exit." "Who wrote that?" I asked. "You did. Or you will. Time's funny here." I walked toward the truck, each step kicking up clouds of red dust. The cab door was open, hanging at an angle. I looked inside. The driver's seat was empty, but the dashboard was coated in dust. And written in that dust, in what looked like my handwriting, "Help me. I'm in room 7. My hands started shaking. I hadn't written that. I couldn't have written that. I'd been locked in my room the whole time. Except time didn't work right here. Past and future blurred together. Maybe I had written it. Maybe I would write it. Maybe I was writing it right now in some timeline I couldn't perceive. "The truck don't work no more," room 3 said behind me. "None of the vehicles work. They're all part of the crossroads now, just like us." I looked around the parking lot. He was right. There were other vehicles scattered around, all half buried in dust. I counted 8, no, 9, an old pickup truck, a sedan from the 90s, a motorcycle lying on its side, and another semi much older than mine, completely engulfed in dust so only the top of the cab was visible. "How many people have stopped here?" I asked. "More than the rooms can hold. Way more. Most of them are in the walls now, or in the dust. Or they've become part of the crossroads in other ways. But there's always new rooms for new guests. Place grows when it needs to." I turned to look back at the motel, and stopped. The building had changed. When I'd arrived, it was an L-shaped structure with maybe 15 rooms. Now it stretched in both directions, a long, curved line of rooms that seemed to go on forever. I could see doors numbered in the hundreds, in the thousands. Room 347, room 892, room 1546. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "He ain't here," room 3 said. Just the crossroads. Just the dust. Just us. A door opened somewhere down the line. A figure emerged, too far away to see clearly. It started walking toward us, shuffling through the dust. Other doors began to open. More figures emerging. All of them covered in dust. All of them moving toward us with that same slow, shuffling gait. "They want to meet you," Room 3 said. "New guest is always exciting. Reminds them of what they used to be, before they forgot." Forgot what? Their names, their lives, everything. That's the final stage. You lose your room number and become just dust. Walking dust, empty dust. The crossroads uses you then, sends you out to the highway, makes you cause accidents, brings in new guests. The cycle continues. The figures were getting closer. I could see them more clearly now. Faces that might have been human once, but weren't anymore. Features smoothed away by dust, eyes gone, mouths just dark holes. Some were missing limbs, those parts having crumbled into dust. Others were barely humanoid at all, just vaguely person-shaped clouds of red particles held together by something I couldn't see. "I need to get away from here," I said, backing toward the motel. "Can't. They won't hurt you. Not yet, anyway. They just want to look, to remember." The first one reached me. It he? She? Impossible to tell. Stopped about 3 feet away. The dark holes where its eyes should be fixed on me. A sound came from the mouth hole. Not words. Just a long, low moan that might have been my name. Or might have been the wind. More of them gathered around. 10, 20, 30. All staring. All moaning that same sound. The dust on their bodies was moving, swirling, like it was alive. And I could feel it pulling at me, trying to draw the dust in my body toward them, trying to make me one of them. "Stop," I said. "Stay back." They didn't listen. They pressed closer, reaching out with hands that were more dust than flesh. Their fingers brushed my arms, my shoulders, my face, cold. So cold, like touching winter itself. And where they touched me, I felt pieces of myself start to crumble. Not physically, my skin didn't break or tear, but something deeper. My sense of self, my identity, my memories. They were feeding on me, pulling out pieces of who I was and adding them to the dust. "Room 3!" I shouted. "Make them stop!" But Room 3 was gone. I was alone with the dust people, and they were taking me apart, piece by piece. I broke free and ran. Just picked a direction and ran, pushing through the crowd of dust creatures, kicking up clouds of red with every step. Behind me, I heard them following. Not fast, but steady. Relentless. I ran past room after room, hundreds of them, thousands. The motel seemed to curve in on itself, forming a spiral that wound tighter and tighter. And at the center of the spiral, I could see something massive. A building bigger than all the rooms combined, darker than the orange sky, pulsing with that same red light I'd seen in my mirror. The heart of the crossroads. It had to be. If I could reach it, maybe I could find a way to stop this, to break free, to save myself before the dust consumed me completely. I ran faster, the dust people followed, and ahead, that massive building waited. Patient. Eternal, hungry. The spiral tightened with each turn, the rooms pressing closer together until I was running down a corridor barely wide enough for my shoulders. The orange light dimmed, replaced by something darker, redder, like looking through blood. My footsteps echoed strangely, each impact on the dust-covered floor creating multiple echoes that sounded like dozens of people running alongside me. Maybe they were. The dust people had fallen behind. I could no longer hear their shuffling pursuit. But I didn't slow down. Something ahead was pulling me, like a fishhook in my chest, reeling me toward that massive central building I'd seen at the spiral's heart. The corridor ended abruptly at a door. Not a room door like the others. This was different, massive, made of something that looked like rust-colored metal but felt organic when I touched it. Warm, pulsing, alive. There was no handle, no lock, no obvious way to open it. But as I stood there catching my breath, my hand resting against its surface, the door began to change. The metal, if that's what it was, started to ripple like water, creating patterns that looked almost like text, like words, trying to form but never quite succeeding. Then, with a sound like a sigh, the door opened. Beyond was a room, but calling it a room was like calling the ocean a puddle. The space inside was vast, cathedral-like, with walls that curved up and up until they disappeared into darkness. The floor was covered in that red dust, several feet deep in places, and scattered across it were objects. Thousands of objects, tens of thousands. I stepped inside, dust rising with each footfall. The objects closest to the entrance came into focus. Personal items. A trucker's logbook, pages filled with handwriting that faded midway through entries. A wedding ring. A photograph of a family, the faces obscured by dust. A CB radio, cracked and silent. Work boots. A thermos. Car keys. Phone chargers. All half buried, all abandoned, all forgotten. The belongings of every driver who'd ever stopped at the crossroads, including, somewhere in this vast space, my own. I walked further in, the door closing behind me with that same sighing sound. The red light grew stronger, and I could see its source now. At the exact center of the room, suspended in the air about 10 feet off the ground, was a sphere. It rotated slowly, made of that same organic metal as the door, covered in those almost words that crawled across its surface like insects. The heart of the crossroads. The thing that created this place, sustained it, kept it alive. The thing that had trapped me and hundreds, maybe thousands of others. As I stared at it, I heard a voice, not out loud. Inside my head, resonating in my skull. Hello. Dalton Hayes. What are you? I asked. I am the crossroads. I am the dust. I am every road that leads nowhere, every journey that never ends, every driver who got lost and never found their way home. I am ancient. I am patient. I am hungry. Let me go. I can't. You're part of me now. The dust in your veins, the dust in your lungs, that's me. You've been breathing me, absorbing me, becoming me. In a few more days, or weeks, or hours, time is meaningless here. You'll be completely absorbed. You'll become another room, another dust person, another voice in the walls, another me. I looked at my hands. The red veins had spread to my fingertips, my palms, up past my wrists. When I touched my face, I could feel the dust there too, under my skin, around my eyes, in my lips. I was more dust than person now. There must be a way to stop this, I said, to break free. There was. Once, when I was young, when I was small, when I had only claimed a few drivers. Then someone could have destroyed me, burned me, perhaps, or torn me apart. But I've grown too large now. I'm spread across miles, across decades, across realities. Destroy this sphere, and you only destroy a piece of me. The rest will endure. The crossroads will endure. Then, what do you want from me? Nothing. Everything. I want you to accept, to stop fighting, to become part of me peacefully. Fighting only makes the transition painful. I thought about room 5, sitting motionless on that bed, turned to a statue of dust. About room 3, barely human anymore, forgetting how long he'd been here. About all those dust people outside, reduced to shambling memories of who they'd once been. That would be me, soon, unless I found a way out. I walked around the sphere, examining it from all angles. The almost words on its surface shifted as I moved, always facing me, always trying to communicate something just beyond understanding. When I got close, I could feel heat radiating from it. Not fire heat, something else. The heat of time compressed, of futures and pasts colliding, of reality being bent and broken. "You're looking for a weakness," the voice said. "There isn't one. Everything has a weakness. Not me. I'm not alive in any way you understand. I don't breathe, don't eat, don't need anything to survive. I just exist. And I'll continue to exist long after you've forgotten your name, your life, everything you were." But even as it said this, I noticed something. The sphere was connected to the floor by thin filaments, barely visible in the red light. They pulsed in rhythm with the sphere's rotation, carrying something, energy, information, dust, back and forth between the sphere and the ground below. The ground where all those personal belongings were buried, where the dust was deepest, where the memories of all the trapped drivers were stored. "You feed on memories," I said. "That's what this place is. A trap that feeds on the memories and identities of drivers. You take them, absorb them, add them to yourself. That's how you grow. Very perceptive. Yes, I consume identity. Take a person, strip away everything that makes them who they are, and incorporate it into myself. Each memory, each thought, each moment of their existence becomes part of the crossroads. In that way, they achieve a kind of immortality. That's not immortality. That's obliteration. Is there a difference?" I looked at the filaments again. They were the connection. The way the sphere fed on the room, on the objects, on the dust itself. If I could sever them. But how? I had no tools, no weapons, just my hands, and they were half dust already. Wait, the dust, my dust. The dust in my body that was slowly consuming me. It was part of the crossroads, part of the sphere. We were connected, which meant, "You can feel what I feel," I said. "When the dust touches someone, you feel it. That's how you track everyone in this place. Through the dust, yes. Then you'll feel this." I grabbed one of the filaments. It was hot, searing hot, but I held on. The sensation shot through me like electricity, but magnified 1,000 times. My nervous system lit up with pain, with input, with sensations that no human was meant to experience. I could feel the crossroads, all of it. Every room, every dust person, every grain of dust across miles of desert. I could feel time bending and looping, could feel realities pressing against each other, could feel the weight of centuries compressed into a single moment. And I could feel the sphere, its hunger, its endless, bottomless need to consume, to grow, to exist. But I could also feel its fear, because in that moment of connection, it could feel me too. My determination, my rage, my refusal to become part of it. The part of me that was still Dalton Hayes and not dust. The part that was still fighting, still alive, and it was afraid. "Let go," the voice commanded. "Let go now." I didn't let go. Instead, I pulled, not with my hands, they were too weak, but with the dust inside me. I pulled with the part of me that was already part of the crossroads, used it like a lever, trying to tear the filament loose from its mooring. The sphere shuddered. The light flickered. And for just a second I felt the crossroads waver, like the whole place had taken a breath and held it. Then pain. Incredible mind-shattering pain. The sphere was fighting back, sending everything it had through the connection, trying to overwhelm me, trying to make me let go. But I'd spent weeks, or years, or hours, who knew any more, in darkness and dust. I'd felt my identity being stripped away piece by piece. I'd heard the voices of people trapped in walls, had seen dust creatures that used to be human, had watched myself slowly disappearing into red veins and empty memories. Pain couldn't break me. I was already broken. The crossroads had done that. And now that brokenness was my weapon. I pulled harder. The filament started to fray. Strands of it unraveling, coming apart, severing the connection between the sphere and the ground, between the crossroads and its food source. "Stop!" The voice was screaming now, no longer calm, no longer patient. "You'll destroy everything. You'll kill us all." "Good," I said through gritted teeth. The filament snapped. The effect was instantaneous. The sphere dropped several inches, its rotation suddenly jerky and erratic. The red light flickered like a dying bulb. And throughout the vast room, throughout the entire crossroads, I heard a sound like distant thunder, or like a building beginning to collapse. "What have you done?" the voice whispered, not angry now, afraid. "I killed you," I said. "Or I'm killing you, or I killed you years ago. Does it matter? Time's funny here, remember?" I grabbed another filament. This one came away easier, the connection already weak, then another, and another. With each one I severed, the sphere fell lower. Its light grew dimmer. The crossroads around me became less solid. The walls started to fade, not disappear, but become transparent. Through them, I could see something else. The real world, the actual highway. My truck, not half buried in dust, but just parked normally, looking like I'd left it just minutes ago. "If you destroy me," the voice said, "you destroy yourself. You're part of me now. We're connected. Kill the crossroads and you kill Dalton Hayes." "Maybe," I said, tearing away the last filament. "But at least I'll die as myself. Not as Room 7, not as dust, as me." The sphere hit the ground with a sound like a bell tolling. The red light went out completely. And in the sudden darkness, I heard voices. Hundreds of them, thousands. All the drivers who'd been trapped, all the identities that had been consumed, all of them speaking at once. "Thank you." Then light, real light, sunlight, bright and harsh and beautiful. I was standing in the motel parking lot, but it was different now. The orange sky was gone. The dust was gone. The rooms were crumbling, adobe walls falling away to reveal nothing underneath. Just empty desert. Just scrubland. Just West Texas looking exactly as it should. My truck was 10 feet away. Engine off, keys still in the ignition. The refrigeration unit was warm but functional. The cargo was fine. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. How long had I been gone? Minutes? Hours? I checked my phone. It powered on immediately, showing full signal, showing the date and time. July 14th, 2018, 3:43 p.m. I'd lain down in room 7 at 3:17. Only 26 minutes had passed. But that couldn't be right. I'd been in there for days, weeks, long enough for the dust to spread through my body, for my room to become my prison, for... I looked at my hands. They were normal. No red veins, no dust under the skin, just my hands, dirty from the steering wheel and the road, but mine. I spun around. The motel was collapsing, but as it fell, I could see figures emerging from the dust. People. Real people, not dust creatures. They looked confused, disoriented, but alive, human. One of them, an old man in clothes from the 90s, met my eyes. He nodded once, a thank you, or maybe a goodbye. Then he turned and started walking toward the highway, toward freedom, toward home. Others followed, dozens of them appearing from the falling ruins, shaking off dust, helping each other, all heading for the road. The trapped drivers, the residents of the rooms, all of them freed. I wanted to go with them, to help them, to make sure they were okay. But exhaustion hit me like a hammer. My legs gave out and I sat down hard in the dust. Normal dust now, just dirt and sand, not the red corruption of the crossroads. I just needed a moment, just needed to catch my breath. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was in my truck, engine running, AC blowing cool air. The motel was gone, not crumbling, not fading, just gone, like it had never existed. The roadside where it had stood was empty scrubland, with no sign that anything had ever been built there. I checked my mirrors. The highway behind me was empty. No other trucks, no people, no evidence of the drivers I'd freed. Just empty road stretching to the horizon. Had it all been real? Or had I passed out from heat exhaustion and dreamed the whole thing? I didn't know. Couldn't know. But when I looked at my GPS to plot my route, I noticed something. There, in the recent destinations list, was an entry I didn't remember adding. Crossroads Motel, Route 62. I deleted it. Then I put the truck in gear and drove. The rest of the trip to Lubbock was uneventful. The load arrived on time, properly refrigerated. My dispatcher never mentioned any delay or gap in my check-ins. It was like those 26 minutes, or days or weeks, had never happened. I tried to find information about the motel, searched online for Crossroads Motel Route 62, Texas. Nothing. Not even a mention in historical records or old highway directories. No abandoned buildings, no ruins, no evidence it had ever existed. I tried to find the other drivers, posted on forums, called trucking companies, even hired a private investigator for a week. Nothing. No missing person reports matching the people I'd seen. No records of drivers disappearing on Route 62. Either they'd been gone so long that their cases were closed and forgotten, or they'd never existed in the first place. Or, and this was the thought that kept me awake at night, they had existed and had been freed. But time had bent and twisted and placed them back in their original timelines, like they'd never been taken at all. Like the crossroads had never existed except as a possibility, a road not taken. I couldn't prove any of it. But I knew what I'd experienced. I knew what I'd seen. And I knew that somewhere in West Texas, there was a place where highways overlapped with something else. A crossroads between what was real and what shouldn't be. And I'd destroyed it. Probably. 6 months passed. Winter came to West Texas. Cold, dry, the kind of season that makes the desert look even more desolate than usual. I kept driving, kept hauling freight, kept making my deadlines. Life went back to normal, except for the dreams. Every night I dreamed of the motel, of room 7, of darkness and dust and voices in the walls. Sometimes I dreamed of the sphere at the heart of the crossroads, pulsing with red light, whispering my name. Sometimes I dreamed of the dust people, their empty eyes staring, their hands reaching for me. And sometimes, more and more often, I dreamed of myself, sitting on a bed in a dark room, covered in red dust, not moving, not thinking, just existing. Room 7, finally at rest. I told myself they were just dreams, just my mind processing trauma, working through the experience. That's what the therapist said when I finally broke down and saw one. Post-traumatic stress, anxiety. Nothing unusual for someone who'd experienced what I'd described as a severe hallucination brought on by heat exhaustion. The therapist didn't believe the crossroads had been real. I didn't blame her. I wasn't sure I believed it myself anymore. But then came December 23rd. Winter solstice plus 2 days. The longest night barely passed. I was hauling electronics from Albuquerque to Dallas, taking Route 62 because it was the fastest way. I'd avoided Route 62 since July, finding excuses to take alternate highways. But this time, my dispatcher had been explicit. Route 62, no detours, delivery by midnight or I was fired. So I drove. The sun set early, as it does in December. By 5 p.m. it was full dark. The highway was empty. Most people were home for the holidays. Just me and the road and the cold desert night. I passed the spot where the motel had been. I knew it by the mile marker, by the shape of the hills in the distance. There was nothing there. Just empty scrubland, exactly as it should be. But as I drove past, my headlights caught something. A flash of blue, barely visible in the darkness. I looked in my mirror. There, receding behind me, was a sign. Weathered wood, blue paint. Crossroads Motel, vacancy. I slammed on the brakes. The truck shuddered to a stop. I sat there, engine idling, staring at my mirror. The sign was still there. This isn't real, I told myself. It's just a memory, a trick of the light, something my traumatized brain is projecting onto the darkness. It's not real. But I had to know. I put the truck in reverse and backed up slowly. The sign grew larger in my mirror. When I was level with it, I stopped and looked out the passenger window. The sign was real, solid, right there. The same sign I'd seen 6 months ago. And behind it, barely visible in the darkness, was the motel. The same L-shaped building, the same adobe walls, the same dim light glowing in the office window. It was back. Or maybe it had never left. Maybe I'd only wounded it, not killed it. Maybe the crossroads couldn't be killed. I should have driven away. Should have floored the accelerator and gotten as far from that place as possible. But I couldn't, because in the motel parking lot I saw a truck. A semi, newer than mine, with its hazards flashing. And standing next to it, looking confused and afraid, was a driver. A young guy, maybe 25, wearing jeans and a company jacket. He was looking at his phone, then at the motel, then back at his phone. Lost, scared, about to check in. "No," I whispered. "No, don't do it." But he couldn't hear me. He pocketed his phone, glanced at his truck one more time, then walked toward the motel office. I was out of my cab and running before I'd consciously decided to move. My boots hit the asphalt, then the gravel of the motel parking lot. The dust, that red dust, was already rising, swirling in the wind, reaching for me. "Hey!" I shouted. "Stop! Don't go in there!" The young driver turned, saw me. His face showed confusion, then relief. "Oh, thank God, another driver." "Listen, my GPS says I should be on Route 62, but this motel isn't on my map, and my phone's got no signal, and I don't know if—" "Get back in your truck," I said, reaching him. "Right now. Don't ask questions. Just get back in your truck and drive." "But I need to. There's nothing here. This place isn't real. It's a trap. If you go inside, you won't come back out." He stared at me like I was crazy. "Are you feeling okay, man? Maybe you should—" The motel office door opened. Standing in the doorway was a figure, covered in dust, barely human. And when it spoke, I heard that voice, the voice of the crossroads. "We have vacancy. Room 7 is available. Won't you stay?" The young driver turned to look. His eyes went wide. He took a step back. "Run!" I grabbed his arm. "Run now!" We ran, both of us sprinting across the parking lot toward our trucks. Behind us, I heard that same sigh I'd heard when the door to the heart opened. And I knew that the crossroads was coming after us. The dust rose like a wave, red, churning, filled with shapes that might have been reaching hands. It swept across the parking lot, catching my legs, my waist, trying to pull me back. I felt the cold of it, the hunger, the bottomless need to consume, but I kept running, and the young driver kept pace beside me. We reached the trucks. He scrambled into his cab. I turned back just for a second to look at the motel. It was growing. The L shape was extending, adding rooms, adding space. Room 13, 17, 18, appearing like flowers blooming. And in the doorways, figures were emerging. The dust people. All the drivers I thought I'd freed. They'd never left. They'd just been waiting for the crossroads to rebuild itself, waiting for new guests. "Go!" I screamed at the young driver. His engine roared to life. He didn't wait, didn't ask questions. Just put the truck in gear and accelerated onto the highway, tires screaming. I climbed into my own cab. The dust was at my door now, pressing against the glass, trying to seep through the seals. I turned the key. The engine started. Thank God it started. I jammed the truck into gear and floored it. The tires spun in the dust, then caught. The truck lurched forward, out of the parking lot, onto the highway. In my mirrors, I saw the motel receding, saw it growing larger, adding more rooms, spreading out across the desert like cancer. And standing in the parking lot, watching me leave, was a figure. My figure, covered in dust, barely recognizable, but definitely me. Room 7, waiting for me to come back, waiting to finish what the crossroads had started. I drove, 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, pushing the truck faster than was safe. The young driver was ahead of me, his taillights disappearing into the darkness. He'd make it. He'd get away. But would I? I looked in my mirrors. The motel was gone. Just darkness and empty highway behind me. But I could still feel it. The dust in my veins, in my lungs, in my cells. The connection to the crossroads that had never fully severed. It was still inside me, and it always would be. I drove all night. Straight through to Dallas, no stops, no rest. Made my delivery with an hour to spare. The dispatcher congratulated me on my speed. I didn't tell him about the motel, about the young driver, about what was waiting on Route 62. Who would believe me? But I filed a report with the highway department anyway. Said there was a dangerous structure on Route 62, unlicensed motel, potential hazard to drivers. They sent someone to check. They found nothing. No motel, no sign, no evidence anything had ever been built there. Just like before. The crossroads exists and doesn't exist. It's there and not there. It's a place between places, a road between roads. And once you've seen it, once you've stayed in its rooms and breathed its dust, you're connected to it forever. I don't drive Route 62 anymore. I've convinced my dispatcher to route me on other highways, even if it takes longer. He thinks I'm being difficult, but he doesn't fire me. Good drivers are hard to find. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm on some other empty highway, I see signs that shouldn't be there. Blue signs with weathered paint. Crossroads, motel, vacancy, next exit. I never take those exits, but I see other drivers taking them. I watch their taillights disappear down off-ramps that shouldn't exist, heading toward the destinations that aren't on any map. And I wonder how many rooms the motel has now. How many drivers are trapped in its walls, waiting to become dust. How long until it grows so large that it encompasses all of Route 62, then all of West Texas, then all the highways in America? How long until every road is a crossroads, and every driver is just passing through on their way to Room 7? I don't know. Can't know. All I know is that the crossroads is patient. It's been waiting in the desert for decades, maybe centuries. It can wait decades more, and eventually everyone stops at a motel they shouldn't. Everyone takes the wrong exit. Everyone ends up in a room they can't leave. Even me, especially me. Last week I found dust on my pillow, red dust. Just a small amount, barely noticeable. I washed the pillowcase, changed the sheets, cleaned the whole bedroom. But the next night, the dust was back. It's spreading. Slowly, but spreading. From the motel to my truck to my home. Following me. Claiming me. I don't know how long I have before I wake up in room 7 for good. Before the darkness returns and the dust completes its work, and I become just another name carved in a bathroom wall. But I'm writing this down before that happens. Writing it and posting it and sending it to every trucking forum, every highway safety board, every place where drivers might see it. If you drive through West Texas, if you take Route 62, if you see a blue sign for the Crossroads Motel, don't stop. Don't even slow down. Keep driving, keep your eyes forward, and pray that the motel hasn't already chosen you. Because if it has, you'll end up there eventually. One way or another. The Crossroads always gets its guests. I'm heading out again tomorrow. Big load, long haul. The route takes me through New Mexico, not Texas. Nowhere near Route 62. But I know it won't matter. The Crossroads will find me. It always does. And next time I won't be able to run. Next time I'll check in, and I'll never check out. The dust is on my hands now. As I type this, I can see the red veins spreading again. They never really went away. They just hid, waiting for the right moment to return. That moment is now. I can hear something outside my apartment. Footsteps. Shuffling. Slow. The sound of dust people moving. They've come for me. They've come to bring me home. To room 7. To the Crossroads. To the place I belong. I should run. Should grab my keys and my phone and run as far and as fast as I can. But I'm so tired. So very tired. And part of me, the part that's already dust, that's already been claimed, just wants to give in. To stop fighting. To accept. The door is knocking 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. The same knock I heard in room 7 6 months ago. Or 6 years ago. Or yesterday. Time is meaningless when you belong to the Crossroads. I think I'm going to answer the door. I think I'm going to go with them. I think I've always been going to go with them. Since the first time I saw that blue sign. Since the first time I checked into room 7. Since before I was born. The Crossroads isn't a place you find. It's a place that finds you. And once it has you, it never lets go. The knocking is getting louder. I should finish this, should post it, should warn others. But my hands are mostly dust now. The keyboard is getting hard to see through the red haze. The words are getting hard to remember. What was my name? Dalton something, Hayes, Briggs, Mason, does it matter? I'm room 7. I've always been room 7. The door is opening. They're here.